to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, to start off, we have a proclamation and some presentations. Do we have the basketball team, Leesburg High School basketball team here yet? I saw them outside. Yeah, so if maybe they can go ahead and come on in. Maybe just bring them up front, I think. We're not used to hearing applause in this room, certainly, so that's it's a nice change. But well deserved, and so excited to have you here tonight. And so we have a proclamation from the City of Leesburg. So I'll read that here. Whereas the City of Leesburg extends congratulations to the Leesburg High School boys varsity Yellow Jackets basketball team for their outstanding 2017 to 2018 season, which included winning the Class 6A District 13 and Region 4 titles, and culminated with a victory over Tallahassee Rickards High School in the Class 6A state championship game, securing the team the honor of back-to-back state championships. And whereas the play of each team member contributed to their overall success, and through hard work, persistence, and dedication to their season, ended with an overall record of 30 wins and 1 loss, which is the best single-season record in school history. Whereas team captain senior Cordreas Graham, senior Keon Ellis, senior DeCorian Patterson, junior Lance Irving, and junior Deshaun Benton all received special recognitions from local and state organizations for their outstanding play in the 2017 to 2018 season, including Cordreas Graham being named the Florida Association of Basketball Coaches Boys 6A Player of the Year. And whereas head coach Sean Campbell was selected as the 2018 Florida Association of Basketball Coaches 6A Boys Basketball Coach of the Year, and was also named the overall 2018 Florida Dairy Farmers Boys Basketball Coach of the Year. And whereas the City of Leesburg applauds the Yellow Jackets, their coaches and assistants for their many accomplishments this season and last season, and whereas the members of the 2017 to 2018 Leesburg High School Boys Varsity Jackets basketball organization are as follows: Cordreas Graham, DeCorian Patterson, Aubrey Miller, Jairi McLeod, Calvin Heflin, Deshaun Benton, Akeem Nickerson, Justice Robinson, Keon Ellis, Lance Irving, Damani Nettles, Sean Campbell, head coach, Adrian Banks, assistant coach, Cam Smith, assistant coach, Traymon Harris, assistant coach, Berkeley Carey, assistant coach. Now, therefore, I, Dan Roebuck, Mayor of the City of Leesburg, do hereby proclaim the exceptional sportsmanship and extraordinary achievements of the 2017 to 2018 Leesburg High School Yellow Jackets boys varsity basketball team, recognize their many triumphs on the road to the 2018 Class 6A State Championship, thank them for being outstanding ambassadors for our great city, and wish them tremendous success in the future. Go Jackets. So someone gets to take this with them. That's you. All right. Congratulations.
If you want a photo, this is the time to get it.
Sure.
You're not tall enough.
All right, well, thank you and congratulations.
Good job. Keep it up. Next year's bigger, better, right? Congratulations. Congratulations.
Good job. Way to go. Thank you.
Good job.
Wow, very nice.
Very nice.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. Did you get a ring too?
State champs.
Oh, good. Thank you. Congratulations.
Right. So
I'll announce them and you want to just, yeah.
Occasionally.
Yeah. All right. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. We have a special group of young men and women today. They are our Rec Scholar Athlete Award winners for the winter-spring edition of the Rec Scholar Athlete Award. I put on the agenda what it is, but what the Rec Scholar Athlete Award is a combination of Leesburg Elementary students that play in our programs. And this year it was, this season was basketball, baseball, softball, and our newly formed pep squad. So the coaches and the teachers push the attributes that we're looking for as an attitude, effort, friendliness, and accountability, and then they rate the students or the athletes on those criteria. So these young men and women are the ones that got a 3.0 or higher on a 4-point scale. So they showed all the attributes that we were looking for in students and athletes. So we're going to recognize them here. There were just above 40 students that were eligible for it, and 31 of the 40, I think it was 42 to be exact, qualified for it. So it was very good representation for the Leesburg Elementary School. We have a good group here. There are some that are missing with all the end of the year stuff going on, so we'll go through the 31 names right now. Students, as we say your name, come on up, get your certificate from the mayor. There'll also be 4 students as we go that have a gold star on their certificate. What that gold star is that they participated in 2 of the sports, so basketball and baseball, or basketball and softball, and qualified in both sports. So we'll note them as they come up. Trayvon Anthony. I don't think Trayvon's here. Lan Baltunas, he was a multiple sport scholar athlete. Jonathan Butler, stay up there. Aiden Christian. Tajay Coleman was our pep squatter, but she's not, I don't think Tajay's here. Perry Davis Jr. Janiyah Eccles. Dylan Foster. Gage Gessner. Yeah. She's not here. Yeah. Gage Gessner. Daniel Grabusik. Braxton Hall. Xander Heyman. Tyven Hinchcliffe. Tyriana Jones. Marvin Kelly. Marvin's not here, but he was also a multiple sport. Jacob Kinsey. Izel Lopez Mendoza. Nathan Muriel. Deshaun McMullen. Hector Morales. Michael Nelson. Bryce is not here, but Bryce Norfleet was also a basketball and baseball player. Finley Paulsgrove. Big brother Ryder Paulsgrove. Briley Reggiano. Keegan St. Amant. John Stannard Jr. Ryan Thompson. William Warren Jr. AJ Webley. And last but definitely not least, Layla Woods. All right, these are your winter and spring award recipients. So maybe with any luck, they'll be our next, or one of our next state champions for one of our sports. So congratulations. Squeeze in here with the mayor. You're good, you're good. Just get out of everybody.
Wait. Got it upside
Next to him, yeah.
He's a 10th grade. Number 12. One of us to be. You know what Jay was saying? Jay was saying, hey, man. Whoa, you trying to intimidate me.
Hey, congratulations.
Good job, boys and girls.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move into our consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commissioner or staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. 1, pull the item from the consent agenda. 2, vote on remaining items with 1 roll call vote. 3, discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. We have anything to pull?
Nothing for me. Order for 4C2.
Okay. Commissioner Dennison?
No, thank you.
Okay, we get a motion to approve the remaining items.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Bowen?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison? Yes. Mayor Robo?
Yes. Someone would like to introduce 4C2?
I'll introduce it as we get my time.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the city manager to apply for, and if awarded, accept a Florida Boating Improvement Program grant for the Ski Beach Boat Ramp project and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Discussion?
I just pulled this. I wanted to commend our staff for seeking grant funding for this project. It was a little bit over budget, so I want to commend our staff for going out and trying to find the money to help defray some of that cost.
Great job. Any other discussion? Okay, discussion from the public.
Can't hear you.
Discussion from the public? Are these? Roll call?
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, now we're going to move on to the rest of our agenda. So starting with 5A, if someone would like to introduce.
I'll introduce, ask to be read by Todd Loman.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending Article 4, Chapter 25, Section 25-292, parentheses 24, City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, establishing criteria for donation boxes, providing for definitions, permitting requirements, maintenance, location criteria, signage, exemptions, revocation, appeals and penalties, repealing conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
I saw you made all those changes that we talked about at the last meeting. One that I thought that we had mentioned as well was that the boxes would have to be a certain setback from adjacent parking, and I didn't catch that.
Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning Manager. We covered that by using the setbacks specific to each zoning district. For example, if it's in a commercial district with a 30-foot front setback, it would have to be 30 feet back
From a
minimum.
From the next closest parking space, or
Oh, from the parking space?
From the parking space
No, sir,
itself.
from the front setback line. We can make another amendment if you like.
well, yeah, I'd mentioned that one. I don't know
Okay.
how the commission feels, but that if we do like a 20-foot setback from the closest from other parking. So,
Yeah, I certainly don't have an issue with that. Would you just like to make a motion to amend?
I make a motion to amend to add the 20-foot setback from parking spaces.
Yes, sir.
Okay, discussion on the amendment? Discussion from the public. Roll call?
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Any discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Someone would like to introduce 5B?
I'll introduce, ask to be read by Todd Loman.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the land use regulations to add a definition for feather flags and to modify existing regulations pertaining to use of feather flags, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing a severance clause, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
So the on the feather flag. So if I can get some help, just if there's any kind of allowance for things like the Saturday morning market or things like that, are these just prohibited altogether? Or?
As it's written right now, would allow feather flags on the basis of 2 times per year at a maximum of 7 days each time, which would give you 14 days. We could make an amendment to change that for, say, special events such as the market, the downtown market. If you would like that, we can do that.
So things like Bike Fest would be covered as a
Special event,
special event?
Up to
14 days.
2 times a year, 7 days, 14 max. So Bike Fest is covered. The market wouldn't be because it's obviously going to be more than 14 times a year.
Is it 52? Is it every week now? Is it
Pretty close, if not.
51, okay.
Yeah. Except for Bike Fest. Yeah.
We can add that if you like, sir.
The problem with making an exception is that you endanger the enforceability of the entire ordinance by making, that would be a content-based exception. And under the current state of the law, that doesn't pass muster.
I was gonna say, if somebody on another side of town said, I'm gonna do something every Saturday as a nonprofit, and they would have the same reason to say, give me every Saturday.
My feeling is the market's pretty visible because of the tents and everything else. And there are other advertising they can do, just not that specific type of flag.
Just raising the question. See how it, make sure everybody knew how it applied. So.
Well, I think one of the issues is going to be just kind of where we're at right now. I mean, what code enforcement officer can drive around every day and go, yeah, they were up 6 months ago, and, you know, I mean,
I think
to
what's
me,
gonna
that's
happen
going to be the issue.
if someone starts complaining, I think that's where it's gonna be. Hey, my neighbor has flag up every Saturday or every day.
John.
I think, as Commissioner Hurley was asking, you know, the code enforcement officer, how could they regulate 2 times a year for 14 days max? That happens if you got a neighbor or someone who's complaining. Now they have, hey, this guy's out every day. So then I think the code enforcement officer is alerted to it, and we are mostly a complaint-based code enforcement department anyway. So I think that's where it will actually give teeth to someone who can say, remove your flag, as opposed to saying, we didn't know you were out there for 14 days or whatever. But it's gonna be hard unless somebody's complaining.
Any comments from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Roebuck?
Yes. So 5C, if someone would like to introduce.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida pertaining to the activity of solicitation, setting forth legislative findings, amending Section 14-17 of the Code of Ordinances to exempt charitable and philanthropic solicitation from the requirement to obtain a business tax receipt, creating Section 15-18 pertaining to sitting or lying on public sidewalks in the Central Business District, amending Section 16-1 to add or amend definitions pertinent to other subjects covered by this ordinance, amending Section 16-3 parentheses C to add exemptions for certain enumerated eliminatory activities from requirements to obtain a solicitor's permit, adding Section 16-4 specifying regulations for the activity of soliciting, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Yeah, this is the first reading, so we won't be just here for discussion. Do we have any discussion on this item? I'll just say that since we put this out, I've had probably more people come and just say, I'm so happy that the commission's addressing this issue, people that I didn't think ever really had a problem with it in areas not just downtown. So I think it's certainly a positive thing. Do we have any comments from the public?
Can you explain that to us in English terms? I mean, layman's terms?
Right, this is
Hearing
the first reading of an ordinance that imposes regulations on soliciting. We've kind of around the community and in discussion called it the aggressive panhandling ordinance. So what we're doing or attempting to do with this ordinance is to regulate for safety purposes that people cannot aggressively panhandle. So the definition of aggressively panhandling would be somebody would come up to you, whether on the side of the street while you're in your car, or you're on the street, and then they ask you more than once or twice in an aggressive manner for a handout or for money or for food. That is called aggressive panhandling. It also establishes some rules and regulations that you would need permits for it. The process is the City Commission goes through on first reading and they read the ordinance aloud, which is what they do, and then before you adopt the ordinance, then there's a second reading and a public hearing. So the commission set the public hearing and the second reading for May 29th. At the May 29th meeting, the commission will vote on the matter, and if it passes with a majority vote, then the code is promulgated into the city's books, and we will enforce the regulation.
Okay. Just making sure. It was understood.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Johnson. I applaud the commission for taking this first step to solve a serious problem that we have in our community, and I encourage the city to encourage its residents and business leaders to stand behind them and let us resolve this issue. We all have compassion for these people, but they cannot take our city from us. My children, my wife, my family, and your family has a right to be safe in our communities, and what the commission doing is the first step in getting it done. Thanks for standing up and getting it done.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and now any comments here need to be directed specifically about this ordinance. So if it's about something else, it will wait till another time.
Can I do it here, sir?
You have to come up and give your name. I know.
Okay. I have a pretty deep voice. My name is Dennis.
Yeah, you've got to come. Everyone has to come up.
This way.
I know.
Explain to him it has to be recorded. Yeah, that's my
Right. And the reason we make you come up here is everything has to be recorded. So if you're not at the mic, it doesn't get recorded.
I understand that. Okay, my name is again Dennis Hartman. I think the mic will hear me. And I'm all in favor of that, passing of that. We also have homeless living on 27, just before 48. He's made a little shack there out of cardboard boxes. I just wanted to alert you of that. Okay.
Thank you. And so this ordinance will be able to address if he goes up to people in vehicles now.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Hello, Commissioners. David Serdar. I don't live in Leesburg, but I'm one of your people that come into town, love to spend the money, come to the city. Today, panhandlers, and I agree with you 100%. This is ridiculous that these guys are standing there. 27, 441, and Griffin Road, guy's got a sign there, and he's talking to me and a lady that whose daughter just had the hair salon there. He's standing there with a sign, and he's trying to, bump it. It's ridiculous. And then is another example up on Pixiola and 441, right? That people are living back in the woods across from a Walmart or Walgreens. It's ridiculous. It'd be nice to have a homeless program for them yet, but one thing at a time. This ordinance is fabulous. You need to do it. God bless you.
Thank you. Have any other comments from the public? Okay, moving on to 5D. Someone would like to introduce.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, establishing new criteria for outdoor storage and display in commercial and professional zoning districts, regulating use of trailers and other temporary storage facilities in commercial and professional zoning districts, providing for exemptions, repealing Section 25-292, parentheses 23, and other conflicting ordinances, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date.
Discussion?
Dan, what's the new teeth, the new aspects over what we had?
This one regulates in a specific area, commercial zoning districts, professional, and along the major corridors, 441, 27. It defines the difference between outdoor storage and outdoor display. Display being what's brought in and out every day. Storage meaning long-term, 24 hours. 5% of the size of the building will be for outdoor storage, and display would be 10%. It gives a 120-day grace period, and that's about it. That's the summary of it.
It didn't really change much.
No, sir.
Commissioner Hurley, one of the things that it does do is the ordinance as it currently exists on the books was sort of put together piecemeal. There were outdoor storage provisions, and then there were more outdoor storage provisions engrafted onto it in a different location. And then there were outdoor sales provisions put in, and they were in different places and to an extent conflicted with one another, which made it hard for code enforcement to say this rule applies here, this rule applies there. What this does is get rid of the conflicts, put everything having to do with this subject in one place, and it does distinguish between storage and sales, and does contain some more restrictions than the former ordinance did. I can't cite those to you chapter and verse now. It's been a year since I wrote it, but we added more things to it, thou shalt nots. And outdoor storage, which is the keeping of merchandise like a warehouse type situation where you have it there but you don't sell out of it, has to be completely screened, and there are setbacks and that sort of thing that apply. Outdoor sales are restricted to 10% of the size of the interior and within a certain, I think it's 10 feet of the building, and have to be brought in every evening. Nothing between 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. can be outside. So it does clean it up in the evenings. So it does have some more requirements in it, which hopefully will assist the officers on the street in saying you're in violation or you're not. One of the problems was enforceability with the other one.
Okay. Well, I know when this started, we were trying to address, I guess, more so probably the outside display.
Yes.
And, you know, we adjusted it, but we didn't fix it. So my hopes by having this put back on the agenda was that we could discuss putting some teeth in here so that you don't walk around and go through town and all you see is just stuff cluttered outside of businesses. I mean, I think that it's, if you look at the beautification aspect that we're doing with the flags that we just voted on, we have a business, for example, that keeps all their merchandise inside and keeps it nice and you know, landscaped, and they have a sign and they keep all the merchandise, and we don't even want to see a flag out in front of their business saying we have a sale. But then we'll let other businesses pull a lawn chair and a lawnmower and a wheel and a tire and a fruit basket and any other kind of thing they can think of, and they can just pile that up around the business all over town. And so my aspect that I'm keep going back to is cleaning up the whole avenue of it, so that we don't have to look at that. You have a sign. If you're a thrift store, people know you're a thrift store, for example. If you're a mattress store, people know you're a mattress store. You don't have to take a mattress out and put it on the curb. I mean, people get the idea of it. And so, you know, for me, I want something that puts some teeth for code enforcement and an ordinance in place that cleans up the outside display.
The way to do that would be to ban it, but I'll tell you, when this went to Planning Commission the last time around, they felt what's before you tonight was very much too restrictive and recommended against its adoption. So there was some sentiment that it went too far already, and we didn't perceive, Dan and I at the time, that there was enough sentiment to ban outdoor storage or outdoor display. And the way to clean it up is to ban it entirely, so keep your merchandise inside your business.
Well, then that means that our planning and zoning, is that who you said it was?
Yes.
The zoning board?
Yes.
Do they not go to places like Mount Dora that doesn't have it and see that their businesses come to town and thrive? And I'd be happy to talk to my representative on that board. So this is just me. I mean, I deal with it, I see it. We're trying to clean up homelessness and we're trying to clean blight up, and then we let businesses just stick anything out in the front yard they want to. I don't get it. The rationale doesn't make sense to me.
Other comments from the commission?
Well, I mean, I tend to agree. I don't, you know, an outright ban versus where we're at on it. But I agree with the concept of where we're heading. If everything that we're doing in Leesburg that's for the positive, to allow negative things that you see when you drive through our corridors or businesses or residential neighborhoods as well, to allow those things, I think is counterproductive, because it in my opinion, I'm not an expert, my opinion though is it would have a tendency to keep property values from increasing as much as they would increase if those outdoor displays and outdoor storage and things weren't there. So it's a hard direction to take, but I do think that's that it's more positive if those outdoor storage isn't there. And I would include residential neighborhoods as well in all of this.
Well, sure.
And I think that's one issue. I have lots of issues, which I'll get in later. But on that, is this doesn't apply citywide. This only applies to very specific areas, and I don't like that. I don't. I think if we're going to do something, it needs to work for the whole city and not just say we're going to penalize you because you're on this street. Yeah.
Well,
which we talked about last time, and I thought we were going to get changes because we left it. There was not support on the commission when it came up, but there was support for some form of ordinance, and it was going to come back with changes, and we got the same ordinance back with no changes.
You got the ordinance back where you ended up with it. But from a staff perspective, we do feel like we're going to be able to tackle these issues that Commissioner Hurley and Commissioner Bone spoke to, while still trying to put together a piece of law that we can impose and operate correctly. So if you'd like, we can delay second reading or come back and debate this again for specific changes that the commission may want to see in there.
What is the reason for not doing this citywide and picking and choosing?
I don't, Dean, do you remember that discussion?
Commissioner, I don't remember specifically why, but between the difference between residential and commercial properties, I think it's a little bit easier to write it as we have it here for the commercial properties and then do something separate for residential if that's what you would like.
But couldn't it? Why would it apply to only commercial properties on the corridors and not all commercial properties?
It was part of the overall desire of the commission to clean up the corridors. That was the original intent on this. So we can make whatever amendments that you like.
One of the problems with the residential, well, there's several problems. Number one, they're not supposed to be selling anyway. So that's a violation in itself. And number two, how do you deal with the garage sale type situation where they come in, get their permit, I think they're allowed, what, twice a year, something like that?
90 days.
You know, and you know, they don't want it in the backyard because nobody will see it.
Well, just to digress a little bit on the residential topic, because I know this is commercial, but on the residential side, I'll just give an example, because I've spoken about this in our meetings, that I was concerned about a house that's been for sale and that they're having trouble selling this house, and how are they going to sell it, because there's outdoor storage and there's storage in the carports and there's trailers and stuff parked all over the neighborhood, and you know, and sheds being built to the front of the house and all kinds of things. I thought, man, these people aren't going to sell the house. They're going to get less money for this house than what they should get. Who's going to buy this house? Well, somebody bought the house, and guess who they are? People who want to have stuff stored on their carport, people that want to have a trailer in their front yard. So it just perpetuated the whole problem. And so I do think at some point you just got to say, look, this isn't. Personally, I just don't think that's where we want to go as a city, to continue to have that, and that we need to clean it up, and it's you know, on the residential side of it, there's so many houses that I know they're rental houses, and I know that they're lower income, but they're clean, and you drive by them and the yards are cut and they're maintained, and there's no storage outside and there's no trailers out there, and so it can be done, and it's just a matter of that there are some people, and I think that number is increasing, that just take advantage of doing this. It's easy to do, to store your things outside and to have these trailers, but man, I think it just brings down a neighborhood, and I think it carries over in the commercial as well. So with everything we're doing, all the beautification, spending all the money on 441, 27, and Dixie, and Venetian Gardens, and other projects that we have planned, it seems counterproductive that we don't address this, and I'm glad that we are.
It just sounds like we need a separate ordinance, specifically residential, and we can't maybe cross the two up. I don't disagree with any of that.
I would go with that, because I understand where Commissioner Bone's coming from. Excuse me. So, something more specific to address trailers and sheds and junk piled up, in front yards. Nobody wants to drive through the neighborhood and look at that. So, that might be the way to go. And I certainly don't have any problem with taking the display aspect and the storage aspect citywide, as far as to all commercial businesses. But here we are, and it is. You guys said it correctly. We're looking at, when you start coming up South 27, which is fixing to start booming down there now. That's going to be the next area we're going to have to focus on when we have all the people moving into the south end of Leesburg now. Elise has been talking about that for 5 years now, trying to get that corridor built up and beautified. And you pull in, and if it's a tire place, well, they got all their brand new tires in the building stacked up on walls, and then they got all the things that's got flats and nails and rims that are busted sitting out on the curb, and a sign painted on one of them says tires. Well, we get it. You sell tires, and you don't want nobody to steal the good ones, so you put the junk outside. But we don't want to look at that when we're driving by. And so, to me, it's an all-encompassing. If you're on Main Street and you're coming in, and I've griped about this, for 5 years. Our church sits right next to it, and I do know that some steps have been made there. They put a fence up, and that helped, because they kept most of the merchandise behind the fenced-in area. but now we've started gradually bringing it more back out and back out. So I just don't. We were spending all this money to put a fountain in and a water, and then you got to drive down 441, and as you're coming into town, before you get to that beautiful sign and fountain and palm trees, you got to look at all the businesses got all that junk displayed out in the parking lot. So, I mean, I understand what you've done, but to me, it doesn't satisfy where I'm trying to get with beautification and going into addition, supporting what we're doing overall. And to me, a flag ain't nothing compared to a bunch of junk sitting out in the yard.
So I do have some very specific concerns with it.
Should we
and they're not
this and have a meeting?
I was going to
on this?
ask that we could, maybe we share some of the issues we have, and then give staff. I think they're going to need a couple weeks to get the information I want, and also I think because this is going to affect existing businesses, I think we need to get an idea of who it's going to affect. So I'm reading it today, and I know this is not the intent. I don't think what you're trying to do, but reading the ordinance today, mechanic shops, they couldn't store cars on their property. Well, I don't think the intent is to put mechanic shops out of business.
No.
But that's what this ordinance does. Because they don't sell. Car dealers are okay, but it's very specific. They got to be a dealer. And so things like that. The storage, is my concern as opposed to the sale. The sale, I think, I'm not wild about the 5%, but I can get over it.
10.
Yeah, I mean, so but I think that's really the biggest concern. And then the storage, so the other thing is that I think we need to allow more of it if they have a fence, because that blocks it. And I really think the 50-foot residential requirement is problematic for existing businesses, because we have people have businesses for 40, 50 years, have a wall, but there's a residential neighborhood behind them, and now you're saying you can't use the back 50 feet of your property. And if it's properly concealed, I don't think that is fair. So some of those things, and I think what I really would like to see, especially when you're sticking to the corridors, is staff go around and say, okay, based on the ordinance, here are some actual cases of what would have to happen to come in compliance, and make sure we're not doing something and actually putting someone out of business that we don't want to do. We want to clean up, but not.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't want anybody to go out of business as it, but like I said, I mean, Chili's don't put fajitas out on the front lawn to show that they sell them.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's why they went out of business.
Is that why they went out? I should have picked spaghetti with Olive Garden. But I don't know. 90% of our businesses are able to thrive and succeed without displaying it, and it's a certain little 10%, it seems like, that just wants to put it all out there and not invest and not have the overhead and the monthly nut that it takes to have a normal business. So, and I don't know, I agree with most of what you said.
So I'd like to see staff come back with some changes to the storage part in terms of who it would affect and how we could make it doable but still fenced and screened.
Why don't you give us an opportunity to rewrite this, make it tougher? That's the flavor of the commission that we're hearing, and we'll have it back for first reading on June 11th.
Well, my flavor is not necessarily tougher. I think what the mayor said is important, because what's going to happen if you pass this ordinance and you affect someone, they're going to go through the city and pick out other people who we may have missed. You're going to come to this body and say, hey, you shut me down because I was 50 feet from the residential, but here are 10 other businesses who are 50 feet, and you need to shut them down, tell them they can't use the back of their property, and the property is only 100 feet deep. So you're going to say cut 50 feet off. So I think if staff could really go around and find out who this is going to really affect, because if you got a business that's been in Leesburg 30, 40 years, and we're saying, hey, you can't use the back part of your property because you're encroaching on the rest of the neighborhood, I think we may open up a can of worms that we're not really prepared to deal with. So I think staff comes back with kind of who's going to be affected, whether it is citywide or just the quarter we're looking at initially. I think that's important for me to see who we're affecting. And 120, you tell me I got 120 days to rearrange my business. It may not be as cost effective as a Chili's or a major corporate chain. It may be a mom and pop that we may be affecting.
But for those people that are mom and pops, their business backs up to the neighborhood, couldn't they be just grandfathered in because they're an existing, and the ordinance be more applicable to new businesses coming in, if, you know, so, I mean, if you're gonna open up a business, you can't do it 50 feet and have that display behind there, understanding the residence aspect too. I don't want a business to move into my
Right,
neighborhood
right.
and open up, but
Yeah, you could do that.
And that's where I'd want to see, like, who is that actually affecting?
Might not be on me. I'm like, man, what are you guys doing? I voted for that.
I'll give it on now.
Look.
Any other comments tonight on that? Any comments from the public? Okay, that'll, well, staff will come back with a revised version. So on to 5E. Someone would like to introduce.
I introduce and recommend, I read about the title only, Mr. Mayor.
An ordinance amending the comprehensive plan for the city of Leesburg, Florida, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing approximately 0.56 acres, being generally located on the east side of South Lake Street and north of Dixie Avenue, lying in Section 26, Township 19 East, Range 24 South in Lake County, Florida, from high density to transitional and providing an effective date.
So that's a first reading. Any discussion? Discussion from the public? Okay, that'll lay over to our next meeting. 5F, if someone would like to introduce.
I'll introduce, has to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning approximately 0.56 acres generally located on the east side South Lake Street, north of Dixie Avenue, lying in Section 26, Township 19 East, Range 24 South in Lake County, Florida, from R3 high-density residential to City SPUD small plan unit development and providing an effective date.
Any discussion? Comments from the public? Okay, that's first reading, so it will lay over to our next meeting. On to 5G, if someone would like to introduce.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida pertaining to regulation of excessive noise causing a public or private nuisance or undue disturbance, amending Section 15-8 of the Code of Ordinances to expand regulation of excessive noise, setting forth legislative findings, providing definitions, prescribing what constitutes a violation, establishing exemptions, prescribing penalties and means of enforcement, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date.
It's a shame we have to do this. However, the county has not been living up to their responsibilities. Noise and pollution do not stop at the county line. And this is something that's being heard constantly in our Arlington Ridge location, in our Legacy location, and we will find out if some of the other home sites down there are hearing the same thing. But I introduce this, and I think it's extremely important that we start taking care of our own citizens. This is not the way they should be living. I've also asked for a second ordinance to be worked on, and I'll mention that a little bit more in the roll call, and that is for pollution, the air pollution, which is affecting the lungs and the breathing and the quality of life in both these neighborhoods. The county doesn't seem to want to do anything about it, then I think we've got to step forward and start to treat our citizens the way they should be treated. They didn't move down here to become part of the pollution and the noise and not be able to enjoy their homes. So this is why I have asked the city to step up on this.
Mayor, if I might,
Yes, sir.
I detect a sentiment from Commissioner Dennison that she believes this ordinance would be enforceable against a business operating outside the city limits, and I don't believe that's the case. We don't have jurisdiction over this business. It's located in unincorporated Lake County, and while the noise does travel over, the fact that it's coming from outside means that we really can't reach them any more than an ordinance in Florida could reach a business in Georgia. It just doesn't apply outside the border of the government that enacted it. we have talked to the county, and they seem to believe that this business is in compliance with their ordinances. And they sort of said, we're not doing anything about it. The Navy overlay that we thought might be some sort of salvation contains an exception for businesses existing on the date it was adopted, and worse than that, contains a specific finding that those businesses are in compliance with it. So that sort of guts that remedy. The city's only legal remedy would be to file a nuisance action in circuit court against GI Shavings, and the residents there have already done that through their HOA. So it would be nothing more than a duplication of a remedy that's already in progress out there. And they're better situated than the city is because they have standing, and the city's standing to do that would be questioned.
No, I do know, and that the county has sent a letter to, I believe it's DEP,
Yes.
asking about it. Is that something that we as a city could do, asking them to look into the pollution issue?
Certainly we could do that, and at the risk of getting ahead of everything on the pollution issue, I'm wondering if, and this is speculation, but I'm thinking that the comprehensive state regulation and federal regulation of pollution might preempt local laws in that area. That's certainly an argument GI Shavings would bring forward if we tried to do that. We're regulated by these agencies. They've already taken over the field. You can't do that.
Well, I think we've got to do something to start to protect the citizens.
The only something that is out there would be a nuisance lawsuit.
All right. I understand the HOA has not given that nuisance lawsuit to Shavings Company? Anybody there know?
Sorry, Patrick Burton, counsel for the association. Yeah, it's. I believe they have been served to communicating with their attorneys on it.
All right, thank you.
But has the association actually attended a Lake County Commission meeting and voiced your opinion there?
Yes.
And deaf ears?
Will this ordinance help any future businesses come in, so we don't end up in here over another business that's going to affect our community?
This ordinance would apply to any business within the city of Leesburg.
Well, for the future, so no more businesses come around our community, wouldn't this be a good idea to keep on the agenda then?
Oh, certainly. There's no suggestion that the city not pass this. I just wanted to make it clear this is not a remedy for your situation.
No, but it might help us in the future not to encounter more problems, because there's many industrial zoned areas around this community. I don't like what I learned after I moved in.
Right. Okay. If you don't mind you speaking, but you really need to come up the microphone because we record this, and so we can have it all on record. If you don't mind. Thank you.
I'm Rhonda Lugo. I'm a resident there. What I was explaining is this would be a good thing for the future, because there's a lot of acreage around our community that's still zoned heavy industrial. And we're worried about what other businesses may come in. Even though GI Shavings came in after I lived there, I don't want us to have to come before any other commission or any other problems in the future of any more zoned industrial businesses there. I personally think that cities should rezone a lot of that vacant land. Now that we are residents there and you have an elder community there, all that vacant land that is still heavy industrial should not be allowed to stay heavy industrial. That's all I have to say.
I believe most of that is actually in the county.
Let me address that. There's two areas that I think that need to be considered, the unincorporated area and the municipal area. Since the county has implemented the Navy overlay ordinance, and I'm going to be careful with my words, industrial development is significantly restricted. Okay, there's a 3-zone ordinance that limits industrial growth in the unincorporated area within a 3-mile radius of Bog Spring. That 3-mile radius touches out to Arlington Ridge, pretty much all the property from the turnpike back towards the western edge of the city limits there. The city is also in a position on doing two things. One, we'll be following up with a naval ordinance as well, so new industrial activities will not be in that circle, whether you're incorporated or not incorporated. The situation, however, is there's a couple of industries that will be exempt. Core Slab, the cement plant, is one of them, and this GI Shavings would be another example. Moving forward, I do see that industrial growth in that area is stymied. Secondly, I would point out to you that the city recently rezoned most of the 470 property from its industrial zoning to the ARD zoning, which is the age restricted development zoning, aka the villages zoning. So most of that property all out in the city's 470 area has been rezoned. That is incorporated, that we control. So I think we're well on the track to addressing your issues. I think the noise ordinance speaks well to the city trying to help pick up and fight the fight where we can, where we have the authorization to. I think it does that for, as Commissioner Dennison requested, and as well as the city attorneys pointed out, that we can't enforce a law or a rule outside of our corporate limits, but I think moving forward, proper parameters have been placed that we can limit it moving forward.
Do we have an opinion on whether we think the county is enforcing their own noise ordinance?
The county attorney has told me that they have done all they're going to do, unless they get some pressure from the commission again.
Well, could we, I mean, I guess we would be within kind of our authority to write a letter requesting that they take action and enforce their noise ordinance?
Yeah, that's certainly within your authority.
Okay, so maybe when we get to roll call, we could talk about that.
Absolutely.
I mean, that we're not there yet. Any other comments on this one?
I think a letter would be appropriate.
Yeah. Just for just a point on this, on 15-8A, it refers to the unincorporated areas of Lake County. That should be the city of Leesburg, I think, when we
Yeah,
copied
that's
the
a
ordinance.
typo.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this will hold over. We'll vote on it on the next reading, but I think you could hear that doesn't seem like we have any issues with it. So, moving on to 5H. This is just is this a resolution?
Yes, this is a resolution establishing the preliminary Venetian Gardens Phase 3 budget of $7.85 million and authorizing project construction commitment.
Someone like to introduce?
I introduce and recommend read by title only, Mr. Mayor.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, establishing a preliminary Venetian Gardens Phase 3 budget of $7,845,200 and approving project construction commencement and providing an effective date.
I asked DC this evening to present a brief presentation to the commission, pretty much to summarize where we've been. We've been back and forth to the commission now 2 or 3 different times seeking direction, and we are now really at a position where we're ready to move forward with construction. My recommendation, obviously for you this evening, is to authorize myself to start construction. Should you do that at the next meeting on consent agenda, I'll have a contract with Evergreen Construction to do that. My intent was by shifting the money and telling us to move forward, we move on the project and get it started. So with that, if DC would give a quick update of where the project's at, the places where we've been as far as the Venetian Gardens improvement plan, and bring us up to speed on our design issues, and then we'll review some budget issues for you tonight so you can make a vote on allocating the project.
So the title here is Phase 3, the community building. Phase 1 was Rogers Park, and that's complete. Phase 2 is the work that we're doing down at Ski Beach right now. We've got actually 3 contractors working there, one finishing up on the restroom, second contractor working on the new road and the boat ramp and the docks, and then the third contractor working on the decorative fence and the gate and trail along Venetian View Drive. The work down there is going pretty well. We've the work on the dock and the boat ramp was subcontracted by PATCO, and the contractor there has had a little bit of difficulty getting the Corps of Engineers permit, but I'm told today that those issues are resolved. They're supposed to start next week working on the boat ramp portion. That's kind of right now become the long pole in the tent in terms of getting finished. I think I think we'll still be done in July. We had originally hoped to be done in early July, in time for the 4th of July. I don't think we're going to make that, but we may still. I haven't been told officially that we're not going to make the 4th of July, but I'm expecting that, especially with the delays in the boat ramp construction. Decorative fence and the sidewalk work, that contractor's on site. He's done some of the clearing. You might have noticed a lot of the palm trees, the split rail, or the railroad tie fence is gone. The sidewalk has been graded out, and he's going pretty well. The pedestrian bridge, which was another portion of the Phase 2 project, which was going to be a bridge that connected Rogers Park across to Pavilion Island so that you could go from Rogers Park down all the way through to Ski Beach. After talking with the city manager, we put that on hold because there's also a bridge construction portion to the community building that we're going to talk about this morning. So we felt like that given those two options, the priority probably should go to the community building bridge before we do another separate bridge. So we put that on hold and shifted the funds, or proposed to shift the funds to the community center. Next slide. So this is the site plan. You've seen this slide before.
Can we put the lights down on top of Harvard? Well, put those lights down so we can see it.
Victoria.
Anything else, Don?
Okay, that's all of the lights done. So this is a site plan that you've seen before. We're at about 99% complete on the site plan. This is first phase is to start work on the site. Obviously, the demo and the earthwork. So this is the part that's leading in terms of the design. This was the original plan that we showed. There has been a change toward the end. What we found out was that this retention pond up in the northeast or northwest corner was not large enough, and so this pond has been shifted over to this side of the parking area, and now this is just a flat area, and everything's shifted to the west just a little. The building's still there, 20,000 square foot footprint, 16,000 of that air-conditioned space. About 4,000 square feet of covered porch. I'm going to show you in the next slide. We've added a terrace out here and a staircase that goes down to what we're proposing to be the new bridge. The existing bridge is right up here right now, so you can see the shift in the new bridge. About 240 parking spaces. Still have 2 out parcel pads. A wet pond in the middle that we think will have sufficient water for a small fountain area, and connecting sidewalks. That's the current site plan. So you've seen this picture before. The front of the building, covered drop-off area, this wraparound porch, and this is the back view. Large open area, lots of windows, looking out over the canal and onto MLK Island. This is an artist's rendering of the back of the building. This terrace area here is, I don't think this rendering is quite accurate, but it does show you the what the back of the building is going to look like. A lot of glass, open area. So here's the current floor plan. We've got 7,200, a little more than 7,200 square foot main ballroom, seating capacity for about 475 folks. We've got 2 classrooms down here that a total of about 2,200 square feet will seat easily seat 100, 120 or so, and then if you divide it into 2 smaller rooms, you can get about 75 folks in each of the two smaller rooms. This is a accordion partition right here. Kitchen area is about 1,300 square feet, and I'll talk about that in a second. Since you've seen this, we've redesigned the bathroom a little bit. compressed it a little bit, and in doing that, we were able to create a larger storage area here, and we've got a storage area over here now. This is the back terrace area. This is at deck level, so you'll walk out of the back and you'll have a large, about 20 by 40, 20 by 50 terrace area back there. These are landscaped areas all around the terrace. If you think of the terrain that we have now, the road, and then from the road it drops off considerably to get down to the water. So the terrace is actually going to be in that area where you've got a large drop off, and in order to build the terrace, we're going to have to put in these walls and landscape area here and here to bring that elevation up flat, so that then you can step down into or onto the new bridge area. It'll have a handicap access along the side here to get down to the bridge, and vehicular access along the sidewalk around here, so that the guys with the mowers and the gators and stuff like that need to get across the bridge to do the landscaping and work can do that. So that's the footprint. Here's the kitchen area, a food preparation area, a catering setup area, and then an area here which is a kind of a fixed bar counter area where you could serve, say, a buffet. If there were buffet tables set up here, you could pass food through, or if there was a large event, you could have a real kind of sort of a bar area in addition to setting up a portable bar or bars that you might need in other areas of the building. This is, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is a walk-in refrigerator, freezer, dry storage area, restroom. And like I said, this is pretty much the food preparation area, and this is kind of a catering setup area. The concept is that we didn't design a kitchen that could feed 500 folks or 480 folks. If there's going to be a really big function, that's probably going to have to be catered. But if there's 100 or 150 or 200, maybe like a chamber breakfast, then this area is large enough to handle the food preparation for sort of a medium to medium large type or small type function. Next slide. So these are drawings, actually, architectural drawings. It's called this is produced by a program called Rivet. The architect and the engineers load into the program the actual design members, and then it produces this 3D design. This isn't a artist's conception type rendering. This is actually a three-dimensional drawing of the building. In this particular view, you're standing just inside the entryway to the main ballroom, and you're staring, or you're looking out across. If you go through here, this is sort of the center looking out onto MLK Island, and this is the large section in the middle that's actually the two-story area that's in the middle. So that's a view there. You can see exposed rafters, or trusses. You can see a lot of hanging lights. Very open, kind of a large ballroom area. Next slide. So this is standing in the southwest corner of the ballroom, looking back through the ballroom. This is over here. This is the bar area, the pass-through area where the bar would be, in the kitchen area. And this is a view of the main ballroom, standing over basically against the glass doors. This is standing just inside the main entry and looking through the foyer and then doors into the large ballroom. You can see this door here and same door here. Those are the doors that lead to the outside covered walkway. And then this hallway here down on the left goes to the men's room and the storage area, and this hallway to the right goes to the classrooms, the other two classrooms, and then down to the mechanical room and in the kitchen area. And this is a sectional view, taking a cut through the main portion of the building. See the main entry, covered entry here. You've got a sort of an atrium, a welcome area here, and then into the main ballroom, and then out onto the terrace and the back deck. So this is the budget we showed you a little over a year ago. We said it was going to be about 6.3, and this is our current working estimate. The way we got this estimate was prepared based on the 30% plans. We have the construction manager has reviewed the plans, and this has then become a much more detailed estimate than what we had a little over a year ago. We also added some money for furnishings, audiovisual, and we carried over, this was in an earlier budget, carried over what was budgeted for the pedestrian bridge over by Rogers Park. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Minner.
Where we're at, I'll come up there. Well, before you go, DC, let me ask you this, just so we can cut back off. Can you go back to the slide where the kitchen area is? The pointer, that right there, that area is a pass-through for serving food?
It's a setup area for food, but it's mostly a bar area, serving area for drinks. Normally or frequently what happens, you set up mobile points around. This just provides one stationary point where you can both serve food through the kitchen if you were going to do a buffet or some sort of a serving area to the left there. But it's also an area where you could then serve drinks. Folks could come up there, get their drinks, and then go back to their tables.
Well, thinking of a stage area, where did you have that in mind? If someone is having an event there, where would the center stage be?
We talked about probably having something that we could pick up and put down again, some sort of a temporary flooring, and we would kind of leave it up to them. It could be toward that direction, yeah, either location.
I mean, I think we eliminated being down there if we're going to have all that stuff.
Right.
That you kind of.
But we didn't designate whether it be the left-hand side or in the middle to the back. We just talked about the fact that we would have a temporary dance floor kind of a thing that we could lay down when it was requested.
I know the partnership has a stage that we kind of use some time at, and it puts people up top. So when you got a room that big, if you don't have something elevated, if you sit in the back of the room, you won't be able to see the head table. So if we don't have something, we may want to get something of that nature where it's kind of elevated a little bit. I don't know if the dance floor is going to do it, but maybe just get something that elevates so you can have more of a head speaking area. And that way it can be mobile. We can manage as opposed to someone bringing something up on the outside, which will rip the floor and that type of thing. We can kind of get something that accommodates what we got.
Go to the money slide now. Yeah. So what we tried to do here is line out where our budget parameters were. And we broke down the Evergreen estimate based on what we thought was community center, building related, what we thought was site plan related, and then we created a little more of a contingency. Our design, we had already programmed around 480. That's going to slip up to about 550 when it's done, which, by the way, is still extremely reasonable. It's significantly below 10%. Then we threw the furnishings, the audio-visual, and the pedestrian bridge concept to wrap up a total budget of 7.8. Before I go into the breakdown of this, I want to point out just two things. One of the things that we did way back on in starting this project was a determination whether we were going to rehab the old center or build a new one. And we determined, you know, pound for pound, it was better to invest a little bit more and go the new route. And really, we're still at that phase. When you look at the community building at $3.8 million, you're still at a very competitive $191.60 per square foot. The cost difference in this is making sure that we make the site at Venetian Gardens right for what we're trying to do, to mix with the multi-uses, the public-private partnership, to improve it to standards that can compete with nearby communities, the villages, and to make the Venetian Gardens a real location point. I would argue that should you have spent rehabilitation money on the existing center, you should still be back here working with this number. So this number down here is really more indicative that where we missed was the site work number. So having said that, let me talk to you about the funding requests. Back in August 2017, we pulled aside $4.2 million for the project. So now what we're trying to do is get the $4.2 million up to 7.8, including and excluding some encumbrances and allocations, and how much money do we need to build to get this project done. After we reduce some of the monies that we already accounted for engineering or design, some minor expenses, and the bridge expense, DC spoke to you about that, which was flipping priorities on the Rogers Park to Pavilion Island to the Community Center Community Center Martin Luther King Island Bridge project. Those funds are interchangeable, so we say bring those over. So to cut to the chase, the adjusted total of what we need is $7 million, just a little under 7.1. We have, after you take out expenses for engineering that we spent today, 3.6 remaining. So your adjusted budget, how much money do we need, is 3.445. So our funding recommendation is 3.5 million, which actually builds another 90,000 approximately into the budget, along with this contingency. So you've almost got a contingency of $750,000 for this project. Our goal in this request is to set this number and not have to come back and talk anymore about money. That's the goal. So moving forward, the challenge that I would say to judge us on is, when this project is done, is this the number that we stuck to? And that's what we feel confident we can be pretty close to, barring any major catastrophes. And the first one is, the geotechs. Well, all the geotechs we think are good. That's the one that we worry will affect this budget. Having said that, where do we get the money? Over the past 3 years now, we have looked for funding sources through what I think has been very unique and enterprising activities to try to build our cash reserves and find cash through operations that we've done. And they're basically threefold. We've built cash in the general fund reserve, we've built cash by the communication sales, and we've building cash by selling the 470 property. So if you go back to our general fund reserve, our general fund reserve ending fiscal year 17 was $12.3 million, almost $12.4 million. Our GFO recommended balance, the balance that we always say we want to keep in reserve, is 25% of our operating expenditures. So that number for us to get healthy reserve numbers is $4.6 million. My recommendation to the commission is you want more than this. We want to keep a reserve at almost 60% of what our capacity or our requirement would be. So that's 7.5. So there's more cash built into this area. So if you subtract this number from this number, you really come up with an available funding projects of 4.8 million. By the way, in the spirit of full disclosure, the number that I did not put in this number was the $500,000 that we just cut for the FSL grant for the mall. But I'm also hopeful that as we go through fiscal year 18, there'll be a little bit more black money from 18 that will make this number go up. So at the end of the day, if you allocate $3.5 million from this, you're sitting at a reserve around 8.3 million, which leaves you about around $1 million for additional projects. That's if you take the cash from the general fund reserve. Another option that you have for funding this project is the communication sales. Right now, we have sitting in the bank $4.5 million cash. That number in 2 more years, December 2019, should grow to 8.25 million as long as we don't use any of this cash. So there's cash here. Finally, also, while these numbers aren't done, there's a potential of about $5.4 million to develop from the 470 property. It looks like we hopefully will close on the Villages sales, which is our initial projection was about 2,000 acres, is really going to be closer to 1115 at 7,000 an acre. So that's a sale of about 7.8 million, less the 75% of the value that we have to pay back to EPA, which is 3.3 million. So that's a net from the Villages sale of 4.4. And in September or December later this fall, we hope to close on the Core Slab Phase 2 project, which is another million. So 470 by the end of the year should have about $5.4 million sitting in it. So if you add all these up, the areas where we've created cash, and I know we said this in a budget process, and I think everybody's eyes popped out of their head, but there really is about $18.6 million of cash that's still available to do projects. So the last slide is, again, trying to get back and to be very conservative with the cash that we have while still moving forward on projects. So our recommendation for you this evening is to move forward, and as we do the 470 property, we're going to recommend that this $5.4 million stay in the wastewater fund. So all the sale property from 470, for now, stay in the wastewater fund, which helps offset some of our costs that we have there, as well as some of the projects that we still want to accomplish in wastewater. Secondly, we are recommending that you do have the funds, either from the communication or the general fund, to fund this project to $3.5 million, which builds up that $7.8 million project fund. After you would do these two things, there's still about $9.6 million that'll be available for projects. However, in the spirit of full disclosure, remember, we work into that number. So at the end of 18, it's 5.8. Then you receive payment number 2 from Summit in the amount of $2 million, 7.8. And then at the end of 19, you get the final $1.75 million payment, to where at the end of 19, at the end of December 19, the beginning of fiscal year 19, you'll still have about $9.6 million. Remember, that's less the community center allocation, and that's less the 470 property. So this is really our pitch to tell you we have the cash to pay as you go and get this project complete. With that, DC or I could hit this. Our staff recommendation to you this evening is to authorize to move forward with the project. What we would do then is we would start notifying community community center building tenants and bookings that after July 23rd, the center will be closed down. The next step, so we get the notifications out. The next step is to approve the demolition for both sites, by the way, the pool and the building. We start simultaneously demolishing, and we start on that. We close all the facilities July 16th. Demolition starts that next week, and then we're trying to put this on a fast track to get the building done in a year with a grand opening of July 4th. The only other step that we would put in there, as I alluded to when we started, is come back and do the construction contract with Evergreen that lays all this out, which I would put on consent agenda for the next week because everything is being discussed tonight. I think my last one is questions.
Once you start building and demolition and everything, what effect is that going to have on the baseball stadium?
None.
So that
The project, it would probably have some parking issues perhaps, but we need to figure that out. But I mean, as far as affecting the season or doing these type of things, it really shouldn't. I think we probably will have some parking issues.
Yeah, Tracy, would you go to that first slide that showed the site layout? Oh, all the way back.
Go back.
Way up. So the plan would be to turn over the majority of the site to the contractor.
Right.
And construct there'd be a construction fence so that you could get in here. This area would be available for parking area over here so that we could continue. I think by that time the high school games are over, it would be the Lightning games.
Right.
We also have to maintain access to the boat club folks. And again, that would be down through here and then across here. There would be a construction fence for a good portion of the time through here and then through here.
And on that note too, with the boat club, we've had some preliminary talks with them where the parking, if you would use that point again, temporary parking for boat club would be over here. With we would build a sidewalk, temporary sidewalk, so that they can access the building.
Now, with all the landscaping and everything you have planned, does the price include all the irrigation and everything?
Yes.
Okay, is water going to be taken out of the lake or provided by the city?
We're going to use reuse water.
Okay.
Make a connection to we have a reuse line directly across Dixie at Canal.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll connect to reuse there. We'll actually be able to put Pat Thomas on reuse once we get this done,
Okay.
which is it's
Good.
now on potable water.
Whoa.
So that's a good thing for us. But the rest of the site will be reused.
Okay. And in your design, I know you said the hall down to the men's room, and I saw the schematic with a bathroom. Is the women's room right there as
Together,
well?
yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I didn't want you to forget, but I had to ask that question.
That's fine. That layout. And we, what we did, DC talked about it a little bit, but Commissioner, since you brought it up, I don't know which side is which. I think this is the men's room. And this is the women's side here. We had these so big that when we went back and reviewed this, we felt like there was just like you could have sofas and an office in the bathroom, and it just became really kind of crazy. So we thought if we push this wall back and condense this area, we'd open this up. So I think before the entryway into the bathrooms were here, and the bathrooms were just giant.
So if you have a full grand ballroom, and it's totally full, are these going to be enough bathrooms for the ladies' room?
So says the code.
Yeah, okay. Because otherwise, we'll just close the men's room and let the ladies have that.
There's always a line on the ladies.
I know, I know.
And the ladies always have the option to use the kitchen bathroom too. Not kidding.
Okay, one more question, and I don't want to take over this conversation, but when was it decided to put in a kitchen?
I think the commission was not real clear on that. We had several discussions where we started with not putting in a kitchen. We made a presentation, was it back in April? Where we had, I think, a lot of feedback back from the Rotary Club and Miss Debbie to put in a commercial kitchen. I don't think there was a consensus. So frankly, I took that one by the horns a little bit and went back to, as suggested, we talked to Bill Mathias, we went back to our architect, we ran the numbers on it, and here's where we can come, what I think the bottom line is. We ultimately thought that building the full-blown kitchen, provided the services for Miss Debbie to continue to keep the existing civic clubs pretty much within the operating parameters that they were, and the money for the service going full-blown kitchen or heat-up type kitchen, it was about $100,000. 75 to $100,000. In this kitchen, I'll still tell you, there's probably a few items that we can still pull out. There's I won't say there's duplication, but I've met with Miss Debbie and reviewed the kitchen plans with her. So there's a couple of things that we can probably do to shave a couple pennies off of it. But I think if we go back to where we start making major changes in this area, it won't function the way we want it to function.
Okay.
And I thought pound for pound for the price, we needed to look at the full kitchen.
I'd just make a comment on that because I thought there was a consensus that we weren't going to do a commercial kitchen in here and that we were doing a catering kitchen. I don't know where that idea that it wasn't a consensus. I mean, maybe I misread something. And then the way it was presented to us is that there was a significant difference in the cost between the commercial kitchen and the catering kitchen, not $75,000.
That's what we thought originally.
Yeah. So I wasn't updated on any of that information myself.
No, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was surprised to see one. I still don't want one.
Well, I'm happy to see one. Maybe that's why I didn't. I'm happy to see a kitchen.
Well, you know that I wanted a kitchen right from the beginning. That's why I was so shocked when all of a sudden there's a kitchen.
Well, I think we
I was
went
taking
through
a lot of grief about
Look,
that.
I think we went through a lot of change and a lot of discussion on that, and obviously your answer is right there. Is the direction I had, and then when we went through the resource center with trying to figure out where those costs were, we put it together on a staff level, and that's why it's here before you this evening.
So how much did it go up from? Well, I mean, I'd like to see the number of what we were talking about for the catering kitchen.
If you go back to just that original budget on the building itself, there's your number. You know, this was the number we showed you in April when there was a catering kitchen. This is the number on the building with the full-blown kitchen.
Well, but there was a guess on the building to just say that is the difference on the kitchen. I don't know that's
This
what
was
he
the number
asked.
that we showed what we
That was a
thought the
guess.
building was going to be.
Yeah.
This is where it is.
But how much
So
is
it's
the
only-
actual kitchen?
My answer for you is we think that the kitchen costs about $500,000, and if you go back and you do a catering kitchen, you'll save about $100,000.
And logistically, I'm a bit confused about how this is going to work. So whomever we let use it, and I don't think there should be an assumption because if we have a new facility, I think you need to open up bids, has it, and then caterers are also going to be able to use it whenever they want to use it. If someone wants to use a caterer, so is someone going to take all their stuff out?
No, we have an answer for that. Go back to that kitchen slide now. Okay. My concept that I would pose to you, and this needs to be ironed out as we move into construction, is that you develop a new contract with Miss Debbie, who's our existing exclusive caterer at the community center. She has a perpetual contract that's endable with 90 days notice, and it's exclusive. The feedback that I think that we got back in April was that most of the civic organizations wanted to continue their contract with Miss Debbie. So the design of this kitchen was that for the existing civic clubs and the existing core business that you have with Miss Debbie would be done in this area, with areas where food can be kept and refrigerated up in this area. And as well, the bar concept here and the food catering concept here and these carts concept set up here is to better help the chamber with the breakfasts, was specifically why these concepts came in. So immediately to your question is, the function would be with Mrs. Debbie as a primary caterer for events underneath 250 people. That gets civic clubs, that gets her normal type stuff, and it does weddings or what have you. That's
so
below.
if I have a
Now, if you
100
have,
people, I can't hire who I want to hire?
to be determined. Okay. This part of the kitchen then becomes the catering part, where when you have major events, you bring your stuff in, and there's some mix that goes on, but the operation is that one caterer can be set up and another caterer can come in and still use the facility. That was the design.
And so the first time that some of her stuff disappears when a caterer's in there.
Well, I think we felt like we can separate the issues. Now, will that happen or not? I don't know.
it's a very bizarre setup. I mean, generally, new facilities like this, of this level, they have catering kitchens, and that's it. And we talk to people, event people, and that's what we talk to caterers, and they said that's what you need. And I think we're stuck in the past here, and just because it's the way we've always done it, then we need to do again. And the chamber has not requested this. The chamber will be just fine. However, so we don't need to use that as an example. I know there were the Rotary specifically. One of them asked, but
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about some civic organizations that aren't 250 people. I mean, you've got 30 people, maybe. I don't know how many you have in your Noon Rotary Club now, but we're not talking about big groups, and to build a facility with a commercial kitchen to facilitate them when the facility as a whole is to be used for larger events, and whether it's 100 people or 75 people or something larger than whatever the Rotary Club has there at Noon. To me, I would think that those need to be opened up to the catering at this point. And for this kind of, if we're going to spend $8 million on a facility here, then we open that kitchen up.
Well, just let me give my three. I don't really have a whole lot. I will say this. On the kitchen, now that I realize I'm the swing vote on this, 2 of you are really for it and 2 of you are really against it. But, you should have laughed there. That was funny. But I 100% support it, that whoever should be allowed to use it. I don't want any exclusivity in there. I think that whoever's having the event, if it's 100 people or 300, they ought to have the right to use the caterer that meets their needs and provides what they're wanting as far as food and ambience and whatever. I think, for me, when you're looking at the grand scale, to not consider the long run. I mean, I agree. We did hear from several people who said you needed a catering kitchen, but when you're looking at a facility that we're going to have for 50 years. Who knows what the future will hold, and to spend just a little bit more money now where it would cost a fortune to add something at a later date when the building's built makes more sense to me, just to spend a little bit more money now and have the kitchen built and completed so you could use it. So I'm kind of,
I'm still not seeing the numbers though on the kitchen. I mean, to say what Mayor Roebuck is saying, that hey, you've gone up $100,000 or whatever the number is, and your overall cost for the building itself, I don't see where that
The kitchen is about $500,000, Commissioner. About 189,000. About 189,000. About 189,000.
How many people are in your new?
Can I finish the kitchen numbers that you asked 3 times? Okay. The equipment's about 190,000, and the construction to put it together is about 340. And if you go with your 340 for construction is putting in your work, the piping, electrical, hood, these type of things. And if you strip that number down, you'll save a little bit of money on equipment and a little bit of money on the construction costs.
Yeah,
My Rotary Club has 50 people. Most of the civic clubs that operate with Miss Debbie are about 50 people, max.
Is it doable, do you think, from discussions you had, is this doable with no exclusive agreement, so that anyone wants to use the setup, they can use it? I don't have a problem with anyone in there.
I think what you have before you is a blended compromise. The last feedback that this commission provided was Commissioner Bone and Mayor Roebuck staunchly opposed to a full build kitchen. You had a riot from the Rotary begging for Miss Debbie. You had us go back with information under our belt from the Resource Center, and we blended it together. And it's costing about $100,000 more. If you go back at this time and chop out the full-blown kitchen, you're talking about $100,000. And we can do that. We can go back. I can give Miss Debbie notice of 90 days. We can push out the time frame of the construction project, give her 90 days notice, which you legally can do, and push everything off 90 days, contractually finish out Miss Debbie, reduce the project scope by $100,000, and then look at later, August or September 2019 opening. So it's doable. It's really what you want and what the votes permit.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think for me, I'm Commissioner Hurley. I think we blended it in together. We got a catering kitchen, we got a full-blown commercial kitchen. and we're gonna grow. We don't look at where we are now, but where we'll be 10, 15 years from now. To come back later, 5 years from now, and say, hey, let's put a kitchen in. I think the bust up the floor, move the walls around, I think, it's just gonna be, for me, too much. I think it's a great compromise. I think what Mayor's talking about is can we do without a premier caterer? I think that's something we should allow staff to see if they can work that out. For groups that I go to the community building, there are more than 50 people, sometimes it's 300 people. And I think for the convenience of smaller, $25 ticket, I think a 300 seat event with a caterer that you can kind of, hey, do me a $10 plate meal. I think for some groups in our city, I think that's what they want to do. They don't want a $50 ticket banquet. They want a $25 thing that's going to accommodate. Ms. Debbie has a reputation of providing a nice meal at an economical price, so that helps a lot of groups in our community, not just the Rotary Club, but got a lot of churches and nonprofit groups who use the community building now. So I think it really goes through our whole city and accommodates a lot of the groups who use the community building who complain about the size of it. So I think for $100,000, and what we've been talking about kids for the last 2 years, I think this is a very good compromise that our city manager's put together.
But why do we have to, what does Miss Debbie have to do with whether we build the kitchen or not? How is that tied to it? We can build the kitchen whether she's the caterer or not.
She can quit tomorrow.
Yes.
Right? I mean, so I guess I'm kind of lost on why we're getting kind of pulled in with her. The issue for me is not Miss Debbie. I mean, Miss Debbie's been there 30 years. At some years she's going to want to retire. We're going to have to move on anyway. So my point is thinking about how do we go forward. But anyway, here's where I think I don't really support the bar thing. I think it limits us if somebody wants to have something down there. I don't know where that. I'm not going to choke out and vote no because of that. But I don't personally like that. But my big thing that my question is can we? I understand building a new bridge because that's beautiful. It facilitates everything we're doing coming out of the community center into Martin Luther King Island. But do we have to do away with the other one? Because if they're having events like the partnership has their whatever, people are parking in that north parking lot and just walking over there. Now they'd have to come all the way down to the community center to cut over across of it. Would there be a reason we couldn't just keep that existing bridge there to facilitate when we're having events on the island opposed to when we're not?
I don't know. I don't know if that really facilitates parking, because that bridge is really only linking foot traffic from Rogers Park over. I don't think you're going to go park over in Rogers Park.
No, can you go back to the very first slide where it shows the...
You're saying leave it up during construction, or?
No.
Permanently, I see the same issue that you're talking about up there.
Which parking lot and...
Go back that one.
Especially after there's restaurants open.
Okay, see, there's a bridge right there, right?
The existing bridge is
basically
right there now.
So if somebody was having an event, they'd park in that north parking lot, and they'd walk there, opposed to having to come all the way down behind the community center to go there, is where I was getting at. And then people, if they parked in the south parking lot, would use the sidewalk to access
Events on the
that.
islands, like Beer Fest.
So that
Well, you're gonna so you're either gonna come from that north parking lot or the south parking lot, access the sidewalks, and then walk across the bridge.
Why couldn't we leave the north bridge is what I'm asking you.
Oh, we could.
So we don't have to come down to there.
It's not in great repair. B, I don't know once we get all this stuff up if you're gonna aesthetically want it, but ultimately you probably could.
I just make a recommendation, keep it until we know. I mean, let's see how it goes. But then my biggest is this. I thought I choked when I saw it cost $250,000 to build a bathroom. But $250,000 to build a bridge across that creek? We did the last ones, there was 6 of them for $300,000.
We didn't build them. We only repaired them.
Well, there's 8 posts. I mean,
we didn't put in any new pilings, and our estimate. This was the budget number. Our estimate from the contractor is significantly lower. But I'm concerned that once we get into the design and we actually start building, that we're going to be above his estimate. I think we'll be below mine.
I have some other questions, and they kind of carry over to the next item, so I apologize. But where are we on the docks, on construction of docks? Because I don't see in the next item that there's any construction of docks, unless I missed it.
Well, there is construction of docks. Let me use your pen.
And then the overall, if you have the full basin there where we have all the docks that are supposed to be constructed under the proposal that we have?
We don't have that. What we did is because, Commissioner, you talked about wanting the Dixie boxes and all that kind of another green space. What the proposal this evening for was based on an assumption that we'd approve the community center project. Hand in hand with the community center project has been the restaurant concept. With the discussion that we've had along the way, again, trying to blend everybody's consensus, my recommendation to this board is that you do not do this restaurant site right now. That provides green space here with the restaurant that we can and that we have a suitor for to go here.
Right. So
part of that lease is design of this facility, the patio facility, and it's open to what docks they will build here.
So there's
ultimately
nothing.
For the city, we're still incumbent to build the rest of these docks.
So that's my question.
Okay?
Is that
we have that money budgeted, as well as trying to figure out what this design is going to be. And I also think that we're slow on this because it blends in to this concept of what we do with the marina. And as I reported to you at the last meeting, the initial responses that we got for the marina was a zero lease that yielded the city zero money.
Right.
But that would get you docks, but that would also put about a $200,000
my
hole
question
in your
just
general
is right now is what, are there as I see the lease on this next item, there is no requirement that docks be built.
There is a mention that they need to build docks.
There's
and
no
then
requirement. Is there a requirement that they build docks?
You review the site plan, Commissioner.
Okay,
you review the site plan
so
before he builds.
Okay,
and
so
so when you review that site plan, you will have input on when and what type of docks he builds.
But there is no requirement at the moment that there are docks to be constructed with that
I
lease.
think
It's only if through that whole thing, as we approve this lease, we're going to sit down and talk, and we're going to say, here, we want you to build this, and he says, okay, I'll build that. He may say, no, I don't want to build that. If he says, no, I don't want to build it, and we say, then get out of here, then he gets out of there because we don't get the docks. But right now, there is no requirement for docks to be built under that lease.
Even though you have the process that you just explained.
Okay, well, I don't see that as an obligation to build docks. So to build those docks right now, there's no money. Is there money budgeted to build those if he doesn't build them?
We had that in phase 2, didn't we? We kept like $600,000 in there. In phase 2, we had dock money.
It's in phase 2.
Yeah, 500
For those docks right there?
Docks wherever you want them in the basin, Commissioner.
Okay, so in the whole concept where it has all the docks throughout the basin, and there's many of them that are there conceptually, how many of, I don't, so we're talking about this, I'm looking at all those docks that are part of the plan. What's the budget for those, and where's the money to build them?
The budget's $500,000. I don't know how much that gets you, and you build them wherever you want.
Okay, so what I'm getting to is just that in this whole concept of Venetian Gardens and the remake of it, a big part of it was docks. And I keep getting phone calls, what's happening with the docks out there? And yeah, we're going to sit down and see if we can work something out with this tenant here, possibly, but we don't have anything worked out. And so in the end, as we go to spend $8 million on a community center here to build, we still haven't built the first dock. We've got $500,000 set aside to build docks. I don't know how many docks that builds out of that whole concept of the docks throughout the basin. And so the other one is that in the lease here, it requires that we build the pad.
No, we don't build the pad.
Can we finish up the community building and
Well,
then
no,
get back to
it
the
ties
ground?
to-
Well,
it
now you're
ties to-
talking about the lease, and that's very much the lease.
It ties together because it gets back to the overall money that we're going to be spending at Venetian Gardens. And I don't see how we can sit here and say, let's spend $8 million unless you guys just want, feel like, okay, we'll just keep pulling money from these other sources here, and before you know it, the money's gone, and we haven't built the first dock, and I don't know. I'm sorry if I read the lease and if I misread it, but I thought that it says that we have to build the pad, and
We have to make the pad ready, is how I understand the lease. And that means we do the stub outs for the utilities.
okay, that's all we do there. Okay, so I'm just trying to get the overall you know, we've got an overall plan for Venetian Gardens and what we're going to do, and I know we have a lot of money that we've set aside to budget to do certain improvements so far with Ski Beach and other places, and we've got some money set aside here. But I'm just looking at it, and from particularly concerns me here is that we don't have anything that securely says this is the plan for the docks, and this is how much it's going to cost. How many of these docks do we want? How much is it going to cost for all these docks? And then we're going to, if we approve this, we're going to approve roughly $8 million to be spent here. And I don't know where we're going to be getting the money for the docks later if we want them. And so that's what I'm saying is I just feel like we should have an more concrete plan on what we're doing, particularly in relation to the docks and how much it's going to cost as we talk about especially big numbers like this and what we're spending.
More comments from the commission before we move on to public?
Well, my only comment was for the audio video. I think I talked to Al about this before. I think great to have an $8 million building, but one of the most embarrassing things is being in a room with 400 people and the audio video is not good. So hopefully, I don't know how far 35,000 is going to get us. I don't know if our staff is going to pick the audio video or we're going to get a professional to come in and really give us state-of-the-art audio video because you say you want to be competitive. So it's hard to go rent a building and you don't have state-of-the-art audio video. So hopefully we're going to get somebody who knows what they're doing to get us something, not 2018, but something 2020 that's going to still be functional and still going to make sense. Because right now, the community center, you get too close, the speakers are speaking back. You got someone who's doing a song, the CD skips. So just hopefully we get into this, that we really put time into Wi-Fi audio video that we can be state of the art. So hopefully we really consider that.
I agree.
Been there.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Get a karaoke machine for John.
I know, man. Give me something. Sure, microphone at least.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public?
Don Luckich. Of course, as you all know from previous meetings, I think this is the biggest white elephant ever perpetrated on the residents of the city. I think the money, I'm not saying don't spend the money, but it could have been done much more efficiently than it is. But during the presentation, the city manager made a comment regarding the village sale that kind of bothered me. My understanding was, sitting in these meetings, that the sale of the village or the property to the village, excuse me, was $12.3 million, and 25% of that had to be given back to the federal government, and we're going to net 8.3. And I believe in your comments you made you only said that we're getting 4.3, and I was wondering what happened to the other $4 million, or did I miss something?
I think, A, you have missed something, because I've been giving the commission monthly reports about where the village's sale is. Go back, yeah, it's this slide right here. Here's where we're at on the village's sale. When the commission in May of 2017 voted to sell the 470 property to the villages, that sale included an approximately 2,000 acre sale. That's all of the property. The commission has been updated verbally by me in these meetings, which most of them you come to, which come down to, as we've gotten closer to closing on the sale, that the property on the south side of 470 is not going to be sold to the villages because we have to deal with our effluent issues. In not selling the property to the villages on the south side, you end up not with 2,000 acres, but with 1,115 acres. All the EPA property that we have to pay is on the north side of the project, which is the prime property. That's about 636.6 acres, which has to be repaid at 75% of its value. The EPA, based on two appraisals that said $7,000 per acre and I think $7,012 per acre, the EPA has determined that we need to pay back 75% of $7,008.50 per acre. Therefore, the total value right now that we're estimating on property that will sell to the village is about $7.8 million. When we initially showed that slide to the commission in May 2017, we thought that that number, I think, was 11.8-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the issue became, we don't have effluent, or we still need areas for effluent, so we can't sell the south side at this time, but we are still looking at a significant growth in residential base of somewhere around 3,000 units per acre, which still yields the community about $3 million a year in general fund revenue.
Well,
So even though we're
I'm not
selling the
disputing
south
that.
side-
I'm just
so even though
disputing
we're
the
not
sale
selling
part.
the south side, no, shell part. We've talked about that, Mr. Luggage. We've talked about that ad nauseum in this room.
Further comments on the community building?
Pardon?
Do you have further comments on the community building?
No. Well, like I say, I think it's a white elephant. I think we could have spent the money a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Hi, I'm Pat Adley, longtime resident of Leesburg. You have a beautiful building here with its glass windows out at the back. It could be located, no, stay with me. It could be located on any property that is beautifully landscaped out the back with fountains and lights, because many of the large events held there will be evening events. What bothers me is that this is a park area. You have done a beautiful job with the west end of that, developing it into a children's playground with pavilions and different things. It's a beautiful, and it's well used. Lots of children enjoy a lot of daytime activities there. But with building this, you're doing away with the pool. That will leave the city with, I believe, just one pool. That pool has always been part of the high school swimming program. It has been part of the senior citizens activities, aqua events during the summer. You're covering a lot of park area, green area with concrete and building. You're doing away with the shoreline because it's no longer a primary thing. And I just had to voice my opinion. I'd like to have a new pool put in there. There hasn't been any talk about a new pool located anyplace. A new pool there with some of Mr. Bones' ideas on hamburger and hot dog and things like that for weekend activities. And I'd like to see the beautiful community building put someplace else so that you free up the park for park activities. I had to say it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any more comments from the public? Okay. Oh, yeah, so we need a motion, but on that, the funding was the other thing. I do have an opinion on that, and that it should be coming from the communications sale. Because I think we need to start working on the general fund's over-reliance on the electrical transfers, and by keeping some more reserves in there, it would enable us to look at that. Of course, right now it doesn't really matter where we put it from because it's all the same, but that's just where I'm at on it. And then we can tell people that, we sold the fiber to so kind of community. So. But we would need a motion for specifically how we're going to fund it, I think, right? That's what you want?
Yes.
And now your recommendation is where?
I think they're interchangeable, really. General fund or fiber sale money.
Well, so I'll make a motion that we use the fiber sale money to make the difference of the community building fund.
Which is just if you add the 3.5 into that number. Just for
3.5 maybe.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Roll call?
Commissioner Bone?
No.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Roebuck?
Yes.
So on that matter, we'll be back with Evergreen. We'll finish up, like I said, on consent agenda next month. Will be their contract, and we'll be bringing back periodic issues on design and updates where we're at.
So what did we set in stone with you tonight?
The vote that I'm walking away from the table is that we're building the community center. And we'll be moving forward to build it pursuant to the schedule that we set before you this evening. So we'll start notifying the residents meaning those who use the facility, on prepping the facility to stop operations on the 16th, as well as the swimming pool. So
But what I
we're
mean,
ready
is-
to.
what I'm saying is, we're building the kitchen, because that's what this is.
That's what we presented tonight, so that's how I took the vote.
So
We
Correct.
funded it. We actually would have to vote on the contract still
Yes.
with Evergreen. We still haven't voted on the contract.
And then we're gonna, at a later date, maybe discuss what we're gonna do as far as catering and things of that nature, right?
I think
So
there's
this gives the-
opportunity to do that, yes.
This gives us the funding to go forward.
Yep.
Okay, so on to 5I, if someone would like to introduce.
I'll introduce, ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, entering into a ground lease with Roy T. Boyd III for property located in Venetian Gardens and providing an effective date.
Move for approval?
Second, let's discuss it.
Okay, so we, discussion. Do you want to give an overview on what the lease is?
Yeah, essentially, this is a lease with Roy T. Boyd as a proprietor to develop a restaurant at that site that we showed and had discussion prior to. I think Commissioner Bone fleshed out a couple of the issues there. The lease is set up so that there's a period while we do construction on the new facility where due diligence is done. The city then pretty much readies the site in the next year. The lease then commences with the first annual payment at a point when construction is done, whereby the first year is, I think it was about a $7,800 annual payment. The reason that that's so low is because the restaurant won't be open. It will be during construction. Year 2, which is year 3 for us, is essentially when then the restaurant would be due to open. We recommended that the restaurant be sited in the spot as we discussed in previous discussion. And at this time, we're recommending that you just move forward with the one site. We think that provides additional green space and some additional opportunity for the city to look at what I think the next steps are, which are the docks and the marina concept, which is kind of the next phases of Venetian Gardens, in my opinion.
Discussion?
Yeah, so I want to go back to that pad thing. Just clarify it for me, Fred, if you would. I'm looking at, let's see, on page 11, it says pad site specifications, that during the permitting period, the landlord and tenant will use their reasonable efforts to agree on specifications for the preparation of the pad site to be performed by landlord as part of the required landlord required improvements. If I go back and look at the definition of pad site, it says proposed finished slabs. So now I do see in back on that page 11, it says that we're going to do the pad site performed by the landlord as part of landlord required improvements, and for the specific utility requirements for utilities to be extended to the pad site, which I think is what Mr. Minner was saying, that we have to do the stub outs or whatever. But to me, it looks like we have to provide a finished slab. And is that not, because the definition coupled with that paragraph seems to me like we're doing a finished slab.
Well, you have to look at Exhibit C, and it's proposed finished slabs. The site is just the site.
Well, I'm looking at the definition.
Yeah, I'm looking
so
at that.
Then that says on C. I wouldn't sign it if I'm thinking I'm the landlord and don't think I'm supposed to be building a slab. The way this one's worded, I wouldn't sign this. I mean, it needs to be clear that we're not providing a finished slab.
Well, I think implicit in that is the fact that the timing doesn't work. You couldn't do a finished slab because you won't even have plans at that stage.
We could clarify it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't expect a finished slab, I'm sure they're not going to oppose us clarifying that it's not a finished slab.
Okay, so that's one concern I have. The other one is that they have, in paragraph 8.7, that they have the right to negotiate the second restaurant.
Yes.
As 180 days for them to be able to do that. And I think we have to come to a meeting of the minds if that was to occur. But if we want to do any other second concept, or any kind of restaurant concept out there at all, that we have to go to them first?
No, not any type. Okay, it was specific restaurant type, and the intent there was that Mr. Boyd, if we went with the second type restaurant concept, thought it was practical for him to be the proprietor of that issue to protect his investment. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I did want to provide and negotiate it for the city to have the option on how we do that. And so if we go into options, you'll notice there are exclusions for the marina, there are exclusions for other green area and snack and vendor areas, so that if we go into a concept where maybe over in that green space where the one pavilion is now, and we go, that's more of a snack bar concept with hot dog stands or whatever, then that would be run and operated by the city and doesn't fall into the definition of a restaurant. In addition, also thought the same on the marina. I think we'll have more conversation on what we do with the marina. I think it's in the city's best interest, actually, at this stage, not to rent or lease out the marina to another proprietor. What we'll find, and I think we need to have this discussion during the budget, is the marina, since we have been increasing rents, is making the general fund a net of about $190,000. And so to lose that for an $80,000 return, or underneath the first cut of some of these was a $0 return, really doesn't help us. In fact, I think if we go the other way and we invest in the marina, we could provide a bigger return for the general fund. So I really think we need to have that conversation before we release the marina. So my concept there was, well, if we do go there, we may want a restaurant or we may want a proprietor at the marina as well. That would then increase our rent values for the marina. So that exclusion provides Mr. Boyd the opportunity for one restaurant site at the definition that's in that paragraph, which is pretty much anywhere in that. You defined it in there by street names.
I excluded anything east of Ballpark Road, which includes everything over on the marina side is not part of the option.
Yeah, it didn't exclude everything west of the...
But I also think as well, if we get into a restaurant after these improvements have been made, after this site functionally works, then your land value has increased. So those numbers then have to be discussed with Mr. Boyd, and if we can't come to a reasonable conclusion on price, then we're back out. So I think it was a reasonable request to protect his investment, and I think it gave the city enough flexibility to go multiple different directions.
Sure, I'm just, again, this is just one I'm trying to figure out the definition of. It says that if the landlord intends to locate a second restaurant site on green area within Venetian Gardens west of Ballpark Road, it will give written notice, and we have this opportunity to negotiate. So to me, that's pretty broad. It's to say a second restaurant. I think it could mean a snack stand or whatever. So
no, because there's a definition. There's a definition in the front. What paragraph is that?
There's a definition of restaurant site.
It's that you're reading paragraph 8.7 or 8.9. It's first right of refusal. There's the first two sentences in there excludes snack bars.
Okay. All right, so that was...
And actually, it's very narrow on green space west of the road. Tracy, if you would you put that back to the PowerPoint presentation, if you can get back there? See, so what it essentially does is it assumes is if you make all of these hardscape improvements west of the Ballpark Road, the only place for a restaurant is right here. Because you have to assume all this is now built out when we start sitting down and negotiating restaurant pad number 2. Or if we're halfway through the building and oh, this looks like it's a really great concept, go back and talk to Boyd. Well, all this is going to be dug up, and the only place that's left for a restaurant pad site is right here.
The other question I have is on the, well, it's just a concern maybe, Fred, you can help me out with here. So they're free to encumber the property with mortgages and, I mean, am I wrong? I mean, it's our property, so they can't, I mean, what kind of encumbrances can we get into here?
They won't encumber the property per se, they will encumber their leasehold interest in the property, which is pretty typical for an operation like this on a long-term.
Which would include the improvement itself, the building?
Yes.
Okay, so, so again, my concern there is that, it's leased to the Hilton, there's no value to it, and so they default on the lease agreement, and we just have a piece of property that's a building that's subject to the will of the bank. On that.
Well, that's inherent in leasehold financing, and I did fight back on that, but they were insistent that it was a deal killer for them.
But then we're only collecting $24,000 a year in rent at the peak there, so.
27.
27. So.
Can you walk me through a scenario then? Because that was a question I had. So say they build this thing out, they borrow a bunch of money on it, they go bankrupt. What happens?
The bank will take back the leasehold. They won't own the property, but they'll own the right that this tenant had to occupy the property. And they will transfer that to another restaurant operator.
And if they don't put another restaurant in there that meets, are they then held to this
They're bound by
contract?
the terms of the lease.
So if they don't put a restaurant in within 100, whatever many days it is, because in the lease.
Yes.
Then the lease is.
Well, they would have the obligation to continue paying the rent at the same rate.
What can we do to make them have to have a restaurant in there within 90 days, let's say? Or they
we could go back and try to renegotiate the SNDA again, but I attempted to do that and was rebuffed at it. If it's the will of the commission and you make it clear in public that you're not going forward with it until the SNDA is modified to require that they act within 90 or 120 days to get a restaurant in there, then...
I thought that wasn't here. Am I confused? Wasn't there a provision in here about it can't be vacant for X number of days?
Yeah, I think there is one in there, but I'm not sure what the time period is on it at this point.
Any restaurant venture, and my concern would be is just event of a default, you end up with a building sitting there that's blocking the view, and we don't get the use of it, and so that becomes a concern. And I don't know what alternative you have other than that we build the building ourselves and then we control it, and we lease the building out, and then if the restaurant doesn't make it, we can go on to the next restaurant. We don't have to wait on a bank, and that would actually probably be my preference, is that we build the facilities ourselves, and we want a restaurant there, and then demand the rent that that a restaurant of that size on the lake demands.
Where did the ground lease amount come from?
We did a appraisal on a ground lease and sale of the property, and that lease, that appraisal probably about a year old now, and it recommended $26,000 a year in leasable commercial value.
What would it be if we own the building, and consider what they're going to be financing, or I don't know what's just the leasehold?
So instead of just I don't know.
That would be a good question to know the answer to, compare to getting $24,000 a year in a building that's potentially leaned to the hilt that we can't do anything with.
Well, I think for me, y'all can go ahead and finish that. It just seems like, I mean, I know that the Boyd organization will have incurred the cost to build the building, whatever that is, $1 million or 1.5 or whatever. So it's kind of the same thing we do with the airports. I get that. And at the end of this, it'll revert over to the city's ownership, I assume.
Yes.
But it seems to me, I mean, And I don't know, that's why I was asking that question. I don't know, I mean, you take somebody like Cracker Barrel, that's on our property, they lease that from us. I don't know what they pay, but they had the expense of the building, the site work, the parking lot, the landscaping, everything. And so here, we're footing the bill for a lot of stuff, where all they gotta do is just foot the bill for a building, and all we're gonna get is 20 grand a year. So it just, to me, it seems cheap. That's why I was asking. I just think that that's fairly inexpensive for a prime to me, I think that's the best location in Lake County. I mean, I don't think you could sell burnt hot dogs and fail there. I mean, that's just the kind of place. I think the location and the draw with what we're doing is going to be a huge success.
Again, we had some discussions on this, sale of the property versus
I don't
lease of the
wanna sell it.
property.
No.
It was the commission's desire to lease. It was also the commission's desire not to get into the quote-unquote restaurant business or build another facility. So I didn't even go down the road of analyzing what it would cost for us or what the market rate could be, because I didn't think there was a desire for the commission to do that. So the appraisal.
A stronger lease market that maybe,
I think part of our problem has been the city's non-commitment to developing that site the way we are now. So I always looked at this venture as, once we did the appraisal, which was $26,000, I think the marketplace didn't jump in and really want to compete there because they didn't know what we were doing. Now that we're there, I kind of felt like this was entry level. All right, I think we probably are giving it up a little bit too cheap. I don't know what that number is. Appraisal says $6,000 a year too cheap. So with that and trying to keep the project moving and keeping it uniform, we're presenting this concept to you. And we modeled it off of pretty much kind of the airport stuff.
Yeah.
At the end of the term, what could we get for this? What we thought was an investor who was pretty reasonable. He was local, has a good reputation that we felt comfortable with working with and sharing a vision that we felt like he understood in our conversation.
Yeah.
So I think you probably are giving it up a little bit too cheap. I don't think we're totally giving it away, but I think it's a little bit unknown there.
So if we're a bank sitting here having a board meeting, whether we're going to do a deal with the Boyds, and I'm sorry, I don't know the Boyds personally, and to be able to say, but you're a banker and you're just trying to decide whether to put the money into this thing. In this case, put probably the prime location in Leesburg, up to potential risk of a bank. At least we keep ownership of the property, but the underlying the ground, but. We're at risk to a bank. They got to obey the lease, but it's up to them. I mean, is this?
I'm advising the city commission to take the risk, and everything we do is going to have risk, and that's this concept. If we don't want to take the risk, then we don't do the restaurant site and we move down the road with the community center site. Maybe we remarket again. Maybe we do another appraisal and we don't do the restaurant. Commissioner Hurley sitting here a minute ago saying that nothing can fail there. So some of this risk is incumbent upon us. My advice to you is you do this deal.
But I think we've talked for years about other communities and how their waterfront has took off. And wasn't the city going out and building restaurants? I mean, we talk about letting the private industry let it drive the ship. Here we got the private industry trying to drive the ship, and here we're saying, oh, wait a minute, let's go build $1 million restaurant. I don't want to build $1 million restaurant. I'd rather take $1 million and go do something else for other people in Leesburg who may not have a boat, who may not come to the restaurant. They may want to go do something. They may want to go golf. They may do something else. So let the private industry do what it needs to do, and hopefully we'll get a boat dock. Hopefully later on, if this is a hot thing, maybe we'll get some other pads. Maybe some other people want to put a restaurant out somewhere on Ski Beach or somewhere, because it'd be the prime property. Here we said we got the prime property. We won't let nobody build on it. We've been talking this for years. So either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. I think we got the train moving down the ship. Yes, $27,000 in year 31, but I think it does what we've been talking about. It's providing amenities at Venetian Gardens that perhaps the city doesn't have to pay for. And we can't say that who's going to pay the mortgage 10 years from now. If that's the case, we wouldn't be in business as a city. So there's a risk we got to take, and hopefully we don't come here 12 years from now, well, we won't be here, but have to deal with the empty restaurant on Venetian Gardens.
No, I'm fine.
Just one more question. So the design part of it, with the when they review the plan. Sorry, Commissioner Dennison, and
No,
I think this is very important that we
I
make this
understand
decision
that.
correctly.
I
Okay.
understand that, absolutely.
So when you guys sit down and you're trying to figure out this deck plan, then is that going to come back to us to review it first, or is that going to be a decision that's made on staff level?
That comes back to the commission. And it just on the, the clarification, I'd like to go back and revisit your pad site question, because Commissioner, I had the same question. Okay. I asked council and got the same answer, so I feel comfortable from Fred that my anticipation is I'm only building stub outs, no demucking. That we did the report on that, and I've had that conversation with Mr. Boyd. So worst case scenario, I would say if we need a clarification on the lease, it would be go back and clarify that one up. And I think Fred felt comfortable.
Can't we just amend it right now?
I think
and
he
then
can.
He can accept
Well,
it.
he's accepted the lease as is.
Okay.
So if you want to clarify that, he probably won't have issue with that.
So,
by the way, he's not here this evening. His representative is. He had an engagement. His one of his kids is graduating high school. He had a baccalaureate. He had to go to this evening.
So I did have one or two
But he did
questions
sign the
before we make
lease,
amendments,
so he's an interested party.
If just some clarification from Fred on, I think it's 8.1, where there's a provision for renegotiating the lease payments by us each hiring an appraiser. And I just want to make sure that we have the right to say, no, we're not going to go this route. It's only if we are open to it for some reason in the future to lower payments. I don't know why we would, but the vision is there.
No, you're not bound to do that, no.
Okay.
It's a may
All right.
negotiate
Want to make
at request.
Yeah. So okay, that actually my other questions were already answered, and I think it probably is a little bit below lease, but I mean, the playground came in about 3 times more than we said we were going to spend, and the community building is 2 times more. And this, at least we're going to get some money for it instead of spending some more money. We're not going to come back and have to spend twice as much. So there's that. And going back to the charrettes that we did on Venetian Gardens back, well, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, before I was on the commission. That was the number one thing that people wanted out of anything was a restaurant by like a 2-to-1 margin. So, I think we do have something great, and I wouldn't be in favor of getting two sites away right now, because I think maybe have a little more leverage in the future. But I do think it makes sense to go ahead and move forward and just get this done.
I agree with most of that, but I got to tell you right now, you guys can roll with it. But I mean, we're going to lock ourselves in for 40 years. Then we're going to lock ourselves in that if they want the other pads, then we're going to have to be subjected to a bank deciding what goes in there if something fails. Then we're going to get this whopping 20,000. Like, okay, we could all go 20,000, no big deal. We're underpriced. But 30 years from now, 27,000. That's the big rate, and we can't negotiate everything. And y'all just want to run this right down the line today. So vote yes and push it out there. But I mean. We've been talking about it the whole time, and then all of a sudden now here's the lease and here's every aspect, and we haven't had one conversation that I'm aware of about how we were going to flow with it, what the market was going to bear, what it was going to bring to us, prime piece of location. Everybody here keeps saying it. 2-to-1, everybody wants a restaurant, so anybody knows they're going to come there, and then we're going to give it to them for 40 years for $27,000 a year. So I'd rather just sell the stupid thing, put $2 million in our bank, and do something with it like Commissioner Christian said. Let them have the whole thing. Let them fix the parking lot. Let them do all the sewage, the demucking. Let them run the utilities out there. Just let them go big dog it. Instead of us spending what we will make in 20 years trying to get it pad ready for them. That's what we're going to do.
People weren't jumping up and down to build a restaurant there. I mean, we can say everyone wants it, but the fact of the matter is we had an RFP out for like 2 years, and
because nothing was happening. But now that things are happening, it is.
Any any comments from the public?
Any comments at all? Anybody got any positive comments to help direct us?
I'm Tom Grizzard, longtime resident of Leesburg. As Mayor Roebuck just commented, we held charrettes for 10 years, not just 4 or 5, and came down to this, the whole thing, that we needed a restaurant in Venetian Gardens. You know, the first step of this whole process was to get the contract funded for the construction of the community building and all the infrastructure and the parking and all that landscaping. This is the second step, excuse me, to putting the cornerstone in that whole project. It's also the first step in developing the marina and the docks that are needed that we've talked about, Commissioner, and we can't kick this can down the road any longer. Please vote to get this lease done tonight.
But do you think, Tom, do you think that this is a fair lease for $27,000 a year, 30 years from now, for that location?
Now, I haven't examined that number. I haven't done the research as you said, but I know that the land lease, as it is now, is worth that. Yes.
Okay.
Because it's not producing anything now.
Any further comments from public? Okay.
Hi, my name is Bob Blase. I live in Leesburg as well. I don't believe a lease of that length should be given to anyone or any entity. Things happen over time, and that's just too far a period out to give anyone or any company a lease. That's all. Shorten it, 5-year max.
Thank you. Sure.
Tom Grizzard again. I understand that 40 years sounds like a lot, but in order to get it financed, banks are not going to lend for a shorter term lease. So I think that's a requirement.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments from the public?
Hi, I'm Angie Lester with the Boyd Group, and I'm pinch hitting tonight, so I apologize if I don't have all of your answers. Pad ready site, that's utilities delivered to the site. We obviously want to take our engineered site plans and pour the slab during the construction process. So pad ready is definitely our expectation. If that needs to be amended somewhere, we can work on that. Docks, if you're going to do a restaurant on the water, it behooves us, it behooves the operator, it behooves the city of Leesburg and everybody that wants to hang out and boat in on a Saturday afternoon to have docks and slips available. So obviously we're going to want to negotiate that in the site plan review. A couple other things. I know ground lease is not typical. It's not something we hear about a lot, especially if you're not in the development realm. It is something that's happening more and more over the last 10 or 12 years. I actually worked in the villages several years back when they took all of their commercial property and went to ground lease only, and it scared people to death. Everybody went, what is this? This is crazy. But it's really not that uncommon in our industry to do the ground lease. We are talking about a $2 million capital investment to build this 5,800 square foot restaurant with a deck, covered patio. That's not even including the FF&E that goes into it afterwards, which is another, I don't know, $350,000 to $500,000 investment. So to say we could only have that lease for 5 years or 10 years with that type of capital investment wouldn't be beneficial. So in light of the public-private partnership that we're trying to do, that's kind of where our numbers came out. I understand if there's a $6,000 difference, and if we need to talk about that, certainly we can talk about that, but the ground lease is good for you, it's good for us. We don't intend to go out and get bank financing on a building, and obviously things go awry that you would end up with that back, but if you did, you would have an excellent building. You would have an over $2 million investment on your land. Are there any other easy questions that I can answer? And I apologize, I've been frantically texting Thad, and his wife just hit him in the graduation award ceremony. So I'll try not to do that again.
Do you have an idea what type of restaurant? Well, that's top secret, right?
Not necessarily top secret. We've talked to several operators. We've come down to about 2 that we've continued conversations with. All of them want to do a cool lakefront aesthetic theme and the menu that would go along with that. You've had some of those very successful in your area up and down Lake County. We've had some of those in Marion County that have proven very successful. Now seems like the time. People think it's cool, it's hip, and it's a neat, Saturday afternoon the family can come by boat. When they're out tubing and having fun on the lake, they can come in tank tops and shorts. Saturday night, somebody else can come, a couple maybe, when they want to hang out and listen to some music on the back deck and order some drinks and have dinner and order more drinks. So we can do a lot with the concept just based on where it's located. You can offer differences in menu, differences in time of day, entertainment options. It could be a neat feature for your town.
Can I just point out, because you mentioned the investment that we haven't talked about, is we're not just getting the $20,000, we're getting the ad valorem and the fire assessment fee and the electric and the gas, which is going to be significant.
How are we going to get ad valorem?
He has to pay
They have to pay it. Yeah, it's.
That's not
If it's leased to a private business, they have to pay tax on it.
Oh, okay.
The lease
So
provides that they pay
You
that.
add a $2 million building to our tax rolls. It's a big deal.
I didn't realize that.
And we can go over that, the aesthetics and things like that a little bit more. Somebody said, what's the concept? Obviously, we're going to want to work with the operator and make sure the aesthetics look right. We're going to want to work with the city and staff to make sure it blends well, so that when people drive in or boat up or walk in, they see all of Venetian Gardens now as an experience, whether they're coming for a day at the community center or an event or eat, whatever they're coming to do. So we'd love to work with city staff to work those things out.
Will be the type of business that stay open late at night, not go to bed at 10 o'clock?
I believe it would be in the operator's best interest to stay open a little past 10 o'clock.
That's a good answer there.
And we don't, is there anything in there like this that sets
No.
hours?
No.
They don't
No.
want to put anything in like that?
No,
or-
in fact, they protect it. I think there's a little bit of language in there that ensures that they can have hours of operation and music. It's in one of those paragraphs.
Well, I just think that people come out of one of the events at the community center, it'd be cool to be able to walk over to the restaurant if they have drinks and hang out by the lake, and, if they close at 9 o'clock, we're just, that was...
Well, typically, I don't, well, I'm familiar with ones in plazas and so forth, but, you're going to do a lease and it's going to say, well, you have to be open this many days out of actually every day of the year, and, at least these hours, and we can't put anything in that
Well,
has some
that's the
provisions.
type of lease you would get in a shopping center where you're leasing a space. This is a ground lease, and frankly, that's an operator issue, and we don't even know who the operator is yet, so it's difficult to get there.
I mean, we could be having events and there's no restaurant out there, so it's there, but it's closed, and like, oh, it's closed again.
In today's commercial real estate, it really doesn't behoove a developer or an operator to not expand those hours of operation, especially when there's going to be a Saturday afternoon event that would feed parties into the table and to the bar.
And I'll say, and I would be more worried about stuff like this if we were dealing directly with a restaurant themselves, but it's in the developer's interest for this thing to work. So, I don't know, they're going to want to put someone that only is open 3 days a week, because then they're not going to get paid.
Right.
Mayor, I have just a couple of things I'd like to try to get clarified in there. First, I want to just make a statement. I mean, I hope that when you do the sit down and the review and of the plan, that there are docs that are committed to be put by the developer here. That would be my expectation. I don't know how much I would be willing to approve a plan that doesn't have that in there, at no expense to the city. I would like to see a clarification of that pad ready issue. It just says it is pad ready. It's not so there's no question about it. And then on this exclusion for the second restaurant, I would ask if we could put something in there that says where you have, not including snack bars, that also any other type of food service that may have outdoor only canopy covered seating, so if there was, not an indoor seating restaurant concept, but something that's less formal. I don't know how Belt would feel about that, but if that's going too far or not. But if there are, food trucks or container restaurants or whatever, that's just outdoor seating.
The exclusion's asked for because it's really easy to say, heck, if we did a great job and it was packed out with a 2-hour wait for 3 or 4 months and somebody else come along and say, they did half our work for us. Let's take their menu, their hours of operation, their entertainment, and their aesthetic design inside, and we'll just copy the same concept, and that kind of splits your business a little bit. So we asked for the exclusion so that we could say, hey, you want to do something that's going to be complimenting or something? If somebody goes, let's go to Venetian Gardens on Saturday afternoon, then they can choose what style of food they want or something like that, rather than someone copying our concept and taking business from our operator.
And I think that's what
So
I'm
that
saying. I'm not
protects
looking
us.
at something that would be copied to build a big restaurant there, even a little restaurant there that's has seating inside and everything. I'm talking about something that's something different. If we had that option to do
Well,
that.
and that's the intent of that section.
I don't think you could stop us from food trucks, could it?
Yeah, you've already allowed for that, I believe.
If you call that a snack, yeah.
Those would not be long-term leases anyway if you had food trucks or portables coming out.
And we probably wouldn't charge them at all at that point, so. I mean, for food truck, I don't know that we're getting money.
$29. I'm
Because
ready to vote.
we are waiting still for 3 years before you get a restaurant.
Do you want to go ahead and make a motion on the amendment for the pad? 'Cause
Yeah,
that
let's
would
make
need to
a
be.
motion that we amend that definition of the pad, just that it's the,
It clarifies stub outs.
yeah, that it's the site-ready pad, not the finished pad.
Second that.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment? Roll call.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, so further discussion on the contract?
Fred O'Brien. I'm the rear commodore of the Leesburg Boat Club, next door neighbor, and I organize the boating activities for the club, and we go to restaurants on the lake every month. There are restaurants that say, please don't come because we can't accommodate 50 people in your boats. You can go down to the Hideaway any Saturday or Sunday, sit there and eat and watch boats 3, 4 at a time circle for a while and then go away because there's no room for them to park and eat. If you build a restaurant, they will come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got that.
More comments from the public?
Oh, my God.
Any further comments from the commission? Okay, roll call?
Commissioner Hurley?
Just voting on approving it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the agenda. Let's see, informational reports. Do we have any from the city attorney,
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
city manager?
No items for you this evening.
Public comments.
Don Luckich again. Leesburg, Florida, the lakefront city. I think we're beginning to promote that well. It's great. But getting back to Henderson Park, I understand, in the last meeting you voted 49,000 plus for the playground equipment, which is good. I understand from JC the sign is on its way to go up there. But what bothers me is the boat ramp. This is a usable asset that is in the park. And the Daily Commercial wrote a nice article on what you did at the last meeting, but there was a paragraph in there that says, The boat ramp is not going to be open because the residents across the street don't want it. And I'm saying to myself, the entire city of Leesburg and the residents paid for that park. There's a usable asset there, and because of a dozen residents don't want the boat ramp open because there might be a few vehicles parked there, that doesn't make sense. This park is supposed to be available and usable, and all the assets of it, by all the residents of Leesburg. And I think if you don't open that boat ramp, shame on this commission and shame on staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public?
Yep. Hello. My name is Patrick Burton, the attorney that represents Arlington Ridge. I want to quickly go back to the noise ordinance issue that we were talking about earlier. And I think I can provide some context to this situation, of the precarious situation that the association is in right now. So the way that the Lake County noise ordinance operates is that it says that if the victim, basically, whoever's experiencing that noise, they need to be located within unincorporated Lake County. The problem is that Arlington Ridge is not located within unincorporated Lake County, so for that reason the county is unwilling to assist us. Now, from what we're hearing tonight, the situation that the city is in is that any ordinance that they do, we're not really too concerned about where the victim is, but it's really just where's the bad guy, we'll call them, the actor that's creating this nuisance. Are they located within the city or not within the city? Well, under these circumstances, the actor is not located within the city. So the association is now caught between the city and the county on how to resolve this. Both sides are saying that their ordinance doesn't have the teeth that would be needed in order to take action here. So what we're hoping is that, I mean, we still have Arlington Ridge, which is a member of the community and located within the city limits. We're hoping that the commission can do something with speaking to the county to, if it's not from an adversarial point of view, that's fine, but it may be from a conciliatory point of view, where essentially anything that the city would do would be helpful at this point, to speak with the county, to have them either enforce their ordinance against their actor that's contributing to the situation within your city, or perhaps change their ordinance in some way. So that's the situation we're in right now. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that, and any action that can be taken is appreciated. And we appreciate you certainly putting on the agenda tonight and at least attempting to take some sort of action here for the residents of the community. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Coletta Dahl. I work downtown Leesburg. I've worked at Michael's Couture Salon for 20 years. And I'm going to go with a little different issue than what's been discussed this evening, rather than Venetian Gardens, downtown Leesburg, and lack of parking. We have an extreme shortage of parking downtown Leesburg. And due to that fact, our annual Leesburg Bike Fest elevates it to another level. Each year, tents are erected, streets are blocked, and parking lots are closed earlier than the year prior. Sometimes as much as 2 weeks prior to the event. That creates a problem for people downtown working and trying to make a living. Now, I think we're all very appreciative of the fact that some businesses make a lot of money that weekend. I'm glad for them. And we, in the salon and some other businesses, pretty much we are forced to close down Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of that week. And when we do that, we lose money. We don't make money. The problem is right now we have a perception that they would like to force us to close down more than those 3 days. We don't want to do that, nor can many people afford to do that. So the concern here is when one group of people, the businesses who make money, benefit financially at the cost of another group of people, businesses, losing money, it's a problem. I'm just asking that this be addressed, be looked at and find consideration so that most everyone benefits. Parking is a big issue. I looked at these plans. Venetian Gardens will be beautiful when this is completed. There's plenty of parking. I see lots of parking planned there. I heard someone mention that at the marina, boats have to circle around. I listen every day, almost, I will not say every, almost every day. I listen to a complaint from a client that I had to drive around and around and around. I couldn't find a place to park. We're doing this for Venetian Gardens. If we don't do something for downtown Leesburg, how can we expect to grow? How can we expect to thrive if we don't address the parking issue? Thank you.
Did you have a business in mind to bulldoze to put a parking lot in front of?
A parking lot in front of?
Like, which business could we bulldoze so we
You don't need to bulldoze a business.
put a parking lot there?
You don't need to bulldoze a business. Why don't you, I don't know who owns the lot that has the Livestream parking sign. I don't know who owns that lot. Does the city own it?
Unfortunately,
Or does
Livestream owns
own
it, and they're not
Why not
cooperative.
negotiate with them?
Because
Build a 4-story parking garage. If you
It's
could
their
build a
property.
4-story parking garage and possibly design it to accommodate, let's say 200 vehicles. Okay, then offset the maintenance and cost of that parking garage and set it up for people who work downtown. Charge a minimal fee, even $20 a month, to give me the privilege to park there in a covered garage. I would be thrilled. And I would gladly pay $20 a month. If you've got 200 parking spots, you've got $4,000 a month to offset the maintenance and cost of that garage, okay? Plus, you've opened up 200 spots.
I get all that. I just
Okay,
wanna
but
get the property.
we're not going to address comments from public. But
But-
you can talk about it during roll call if you want to. But we for public comments we take them and then we can talk with staff afterwards. But we're not
That's
going
great.
to
Thank you,
solve
but I was
parking
asked the
right
question,
now.
so I can
I
answer
know. So
Thank you.
But thank you for your comments. More public comments. Yes, sir.
Just one quick comment. May mentioned earlier, Mr. Morrison, you made mention earlier that you had spoken with someone from Lake County that said to you GI Shavings is in compliance with everything.
That's what I was told.
Okay, you've been misinformed. As Elise Dennison has been out to the property themselves, she can tell you they are not in compliance. They're, can you show me, can I have that photograph a second, please?
Well, I think Lake County says they're in compliance. We're not
Yeah.
saying we think they're in compliance. We're just what they're saying.
That's,
Yeah.
they're both
We don't.
fine. The noise is one thing, you can have that. Smoke is something
they're
else.
breathing
And that's what we
all the
deal with.
time.
That's what we deal with on a daily basis. They are not in compliance with any regulation.
That's probably a DEP matter. You're not
DEP's aware.
understanding that
DEP's aware, but I'm just trying to let you know.
agencies have jurisdiction over various
I'm just
issues.
letting you know, you've been misinformed. That's
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
They're in compliance with county regulations. The county doesn't regulate air quality for the reason that I stated earlier.
Right, and
The
as
state
far
has preempted that field.
And as far as
It's a state
noise is
matter.
concerned, they're not in compliance with noise either.
Right. So okay, but we're not the county, so it's but we're going to try to help. We are. So we're going to move on. Any more public comments?
I do.
Okay, sir.
Why do you keep asking that, Dan?
I know. I think we saved them up all for tonight, all year long. That's okay. It's okay. Go backwards.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Serdar. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a very concerned citizen, and where there's it's a battlefield of life out there on the streets. You know, it is what you do while you're living. I have a Bible signed by Francis Cardinal George twice. That's a tough one to get. I was applauded in '98, and the second time, that was the 100th anniversary of a church. It is what you do while you're living that makes a difference in our community. You are the leaders of this area's city. There's decisions to be made this year. There are elections to be made. You are the leaders that have the voices that carry farther than my voice. I speak at the Lake County Commissioners meetings also. I have run for county commissioner up in Illinois. I won a primary. I'm the kind of guy that helps you close Bike Fest till 3 o'clock in the morning. This is a literature of a official Bike Fest vendor permit. Heck, it was laying down. I picked that kind of stuff up. No buts about it. Only trash litters. I'm working with Adam Putnam, and I'm not here to campaign for him, but by God, Sean Parks, Leslie Capion, commissioners that are running for office, they're working with Putnam. Senator Baxley's working with Putnam. These guys are leaders. You guys are leaders. We need to get our society a little bit better acted together. There's senseless people out there. One of the ideas that I have is a cigarette butt deposit idea. No buts about it. Trash of litter. There's a concern that even the Governor Scott is being sued with Agricultural Commissioner Putnam by 8 students. It was in the paper a couple months ago. For their future. Our beaches are being eroded with plastics. This is a concern even in our city right here of yours. I live in Fruitland Park, but I come here and spend money. I come here to Chicago's pizza place. I come here to Bloom's restaurant. And we got people that are sleeping on the benches. I'm trying to help. I've emailed the commissioners, 3 of them that are in the northern area. Wendy Breeden, Leslie Capion, and Josh Blake, to help you guys build a homeless program, something. It needs to be done. Not in the city area, but out in the county, so that it's away from the owners here. My feeling is it's a battlefield in the streets, and the true citizen wants to see and feel the dignity they deserve. The senseless need to be taught. You know, they need help.
Thank you.
Cigarette litter is the #1 trash.
So we can limit these to three minutes.
Oh, I didn't
so,
know that.
yeah,
I
3
just wanted to
minutes.
show
But thank
that's
you.
1
Yeah.
month field trip cigarette butts.
That is a lot of cigarette
It's ridiculous.
butts.
People throw it out. It was Earth Day a few weeks ago. Even the Pope put a message out. My Bible signed by Francis Cardinal George twice. Oh, it's a Pope Francis. I've reached out to the Washington, D.C. embassy.
Okay.
With
well,
that, thank you very much.
Thank
I was
you.
in the hallways
We
talking to your
appreciate
nice
it.
police chief.
Thanks.
God bless you.
Yeah.
You know, how about a beverage container law also that other states have?
I'm sure the
That
chief
would
of
work
police can
good.
help you with
You
that.
can
So
cut me
maybe you
off.
could
God bless
go
you.
there. Thanks. All right. Sorry, it's getting late. We're trying to, but thank you.
You should
Thank
do
you.
the public comment at the beginning. Everybody could be leaving like the commissioners meeting. God bless you for what you do. You guys are red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to roll call.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yeah, I brought this up with Al, I believe, today, and that's having, now that this is going, the Venetian Gardens and whatnot, but we're shutting down early, to have a list of places plus the expense sent out to our nonprofit organizations so that they can immediately start looking for another place to have their meetings, and hopefully that'll get taken care of. Smoke and pollution ordinance that I mentioned, Lake County doesn't seem to want to do too much about it, and right now there was an article in the paper recently, which he's gone, but thank Mr. Blasey for sending it to me, and that is that Lake County is one of the worst polluted counties in the state. And one of the issues, and this is what's being experienced in Arlington Ridge, is particle pollution from the smoke and particulates that are being pumped out in their chimney. Not an expensive thing to fix. They could put a second filter on that chimney and burn off some of that pollution. And also they have what's called cyclones on their roofs. If those were maintained properly, the dust would not be as bad. So I'm asking that the city, again, not only with the noise, but with the pollution, do something about it. Because I'm concerned that in the future, and the pretty near future, that some of these folks that are getting lung problems and diseases and cancer and COPD may be starting to file lawsuits. So let's head this off. These are citizens that are being negatively affected.
Elise, did you reach out to any commissioners yourself?
In the
County.
county? No.
No.
No, to hear everything, and I'm sorry that the lawyer isn't here anymore.
He's
To
over
hear-
there.
Oh, okay. You can support this with everything that organization in Arlington Ridge has done as far as working with the DEP, with the county. I mean, they have tried everything they have done.
We have, yes.
Yeah.
We're taking every single action possible, including just filing suit against GI Shavings directly.
That's a nuisance suit that they're filing to try to get them that way.
Right, and so as I said before, just anything that the city could do to help us would be very appreciated.
Maybe we could we draft a letter asking the county to enforce the noise ordinance?
Of course.
I mean, as part of the county, that we're asking them to do that.
They would have to be asked to amend it. I don't know why they did what they did with the provision that Mr. Burton quoted. The ordinance is very odd in that regard. In one place it says if you're a business within a city making noise that annoys people in the county, we can enforce against you, which they have the right to do because their jurisdiction is countywide. But then they turned around and said if you're a resident within the city, also their constituents, but a business in the county is bothering you, it's not our problem. So they
Okay,
sort
so
of...
maybe we could ask for a letter asking them to amend that.
They would need to amend the ordinance to make that part mirror the other parts so it would apply to people annoyed in the city by a business in the county. And there's no reason they couldn't do that, which is different than the city. They have the jurisdiction, we don't.
Just to chime in quickly again, that's exactly right. And so the situation we're having with the county is that I don't know that they're claiming that the ordinance is not being violated. Their perspective on it is that nobody from unincorporated Lake County is complaining to them about the issue.
There's nobody out there.
Exactly. That's why we're in this position. So they say that anybody from the city of Leesburg can call us every single day.
So
We're
we
not
could
going to do
unannex
anything
it.
about it.
You know, I looked at the map, and there are some lots in the development called Plantation within unincorporated Lake County that are fairly close to that.
Not within Arlington Ridge, within Plantation.
Within
Is that what you're
Plantation,
saying?
yeah. You might want to go talk to those people.
We've reached out to that association. They are not willing to take any action at this time.
But all you need to do is find a couple of residents
A couple
down there
straw
on that
plaintiffs,
edge
right.
who would
Right.
complain to the county, then they wouldn't have that excuse anymore.
That's an interesting approach. Yes, we could try that. Thank you.
Well, I've never heard of it, because I mean, even in law enforcement, you know, the city can't go outside and write a ticket outside Leesburg.
But they can come in here
But
and
they
write a
come here to
ticket.
this county. But on the same token, if you live in Leesburg and you don't like Leesburg Police Department, you can tell Leesburg Police Department to respond to your house and ask for a deputy because you're in the county. So you think that they would be protected under the county law even if they're in the city or not.
But it gives the county wiggle room. Just do what they're doing now.
Well, maybe we need
But
to
it's
make some
election
phone
year, so
calls.
it's a good year to ask.
This is a good year to make some, this would be a good time for some of us to just make some calls at least.
That's absolutely right.
One-on-one.
Yeah.
Let's go to their commission meeting.
You got it.
Stand up.
That's it, thank you.
Commissioner Bone?
I noticed the other day I was driving that way, and I think I smelled it for
Yeah.
the first time as I was driving through there, so I assume that was that odor. So, I want to commend planning staff just for everything that they're doing there. City staff as a whole, but I know that with these ordinances that are coming up, that takes a lot of time there. So, on the downtown display, I brought this up a couple of years ago about putting a display up that identifies what kind of events may be happening, particularly now since we're not going to have the flags. And now we have new restaurants. We've got, 2 new restaurants that just opened here, I think, in the last couple of weeks downtown. And I just happened to see a picture of Fort Collins today, and there was a display board that they had up, a directory of the different retail restaurants and things downtown. So I don't know where that would fall, if that would be a city thing or a downtown business thing, but I think it's if we can point people in the direction of what's going on downtown and what kind of stores and restaurants are downtown, that might be helpful if we had something like that in town.
As long as they could park.
Yes, as long as they could park. So that's all I have tonight.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes, I want to commend the staff. I think great things are happening in Leesburg, and finally moved forward with the restaurant, and we want to thank the board group for stepping up because we didn't have many people knocking on our doors to build a restaurant, and many people know a restaurant is a risky business. So I commend them on a $2 million investment to our city. Also, I think we kind of been remiss because we've been excited about new restaurants open. We've been excited about Beacon College, but we hadn't talked much about parking. Mr. Malosky's been complaining about parking at Getzel's for the last 3 years at least. And we have a CRA, but I think there's some vacant lots. We may need to go out and talk to people. We may need to buy a building, knock a building down to get parking because we're approving all these restaurants and people are going to come and they're going to come in here. Trust me, I've been there where they've actually counted all the parking spots. In fact, the building where the partnership is supposed to be knocked down for a parking lot. But of course, when we bought it, it became the partnership office, $400,000+. So we need to make sure that we're going to have these restaurants coming. Beacon Colleges they're going to slow down anytime soon. And the last thing wants people to come now downtown and they have nowhere to park. And it's going to be, because I mean, I'm riding downtown and the car's backing up trying to parallel park in the middle of Main Street. So if you're not paying attention, you're going to rear end somebody. Beacon College students are walking. They don't use crosswalks. They walk in the middle of the road and people see that state law. So they slam on brakes and let everybody cross in the middle of the street. So we got a problem, and I think we need to address it sooner rather than later. And if not, we're going to have a major concern downtown. So I think the staff need to start looking for some vacant lots, and we can pick up. At least Citizen has that lot right there on Main Street at 27. They got it for sale sign. So,
that's right. That would be great. Yeah.
So I think we need to really start looking at what we can do to accommodate parking because it's going to be a bigger problem. The more people find that Leesburg is a place to be. So I'm glad we recognize the Leesburg basketball team. Hopefully 30-1, and I think we didn't do a very good job at promoting their success. So I'm glad Al put them on the agenda. The mayor was able to accommodate them, but I think, and I want to toot our staff because I think with the gymnasium, I think able to get kids at a very early age, I think you're producing championship quality teams because kids have a place to go and a safe place and they're honing their skills. So I think that's a toot to our staff at the gymnasium who are actually training these kids. And there, I put Leesburg on the map. I'm in Lakeland. I'm here in a guy from Tallahassee. Never knew what Leesburg was, and we're whooping him. And now he knows what Leesburg is. So I think economically it does great for our city because I think it's a great marketing piece that we didn't have to pay anything for. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Hurley?
Let me make a motion that we look at getting a trolley system that'll take people from the 2 parking garages we have and drop them off downtown. We can get a 12-passenger golf cart and 2 guys to drive it 24 hours a day, and we'll just drive them from the parking garage down on East Main Street to wherever they want to be dropped off on West Main Street. That would solve the problem, because we have the parking garage. Nobody uses it because they don't want to walk that far. So maybe we should just try to find how to transport people from the parking garage to their businesses to see if we can remedy the near future parking problem. My last question, or thing, I was going to bring it up during the banners, but I know we've been working on the sign issues, and we got the matching where we pay on the sign grants and stuff, but there are still a lot of businesses that their signs are just destroyed, some from the hurricanes. Some of them are pretty good businesses, that obviously could afford it, and they've been that way over a year. So in the midst of all this, if we could just touch on maybe reaching out to people who their signs have been destroyed and trying to get those fixed at some point. That's it for me.
Mayor Robert?
And once they've been unrepaired for 6 months, I believe they have to come in, technically they have to come into compliance with the entirely new sign ordinance.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they can't stay vacant. So I think that's a really good point. Was able to attend Beacon College's graduation weekend before last, and that was a great event. You see those kids and how much it means to them to graduate, and it's just, I think we're very lucky to have them. I saw they went to the grand opening for their dorm, and that was it was just everything about the place was first rate. I wish my dorm looked like that, but it was far from it. So that was great. And then of course the high school, in addition to the basketball program, I found out that they're starting this ACE Cambridge program next year, which is it's like a college prep path for people. You start in your freshman year, and then you can get scholarships to college a little bit easier. So that's they're doing a lot of really good things here at the schools, I think, and very positive. In terms of the parking, I think one thing that we could look at least temporarily, I don't know if there's a long-term solution, is that we have the old Public Works yard that would be appropriate for employee parking. You know, you're not gonna get your patrons to park there, but if we could move employees to opening that up somehow and maybe trying to get business employees to park there, leaving more of the stuff downtown. I've always personally, because I've seen the research, been a proponent of at least limited areas with parking meters. All the research says that businesses do better when you put them in. And with being able to pay with credit cards, it's not the hassle that it was before with change. And it's not about making money. It's the fact that if you're not willing, $1 for an hour. If you're not willing to spend $1 to park, you're not going to spend money at the downtown businesses to start with. All it does is it keeps the employees, which I see all the time, parking on Main Street in front of their business because they don't want to walk. I think that would solve a lot of our problems if we could have an employee parking area and then try to get customers on Main Street. So I think it's at least worth exploring. And then I won't be here at the next meeting, so Commissioner Hershey.
I won't be here either.
Oh, good. Yeah, I guess a good agenda, man. What do you want?
We got this.
Yeah, y'all go ahead. Take your time, man. Fly out, man.
Hey, but on a serious note, I was being halfway sarcastic, but what's the parking capacity at the one in front of Frank's place?
The garage?
Yeah.
Do you know what that number is? It's got to be a couple hundred cars, I would think. 50 cars a level, and there's 3 levels.
By the library.
Beacon uses that a lot, the library. It is full most of the time. You go down there, 9:30 in the morning, it's full.
I will say recently I have not been able to find a parking spot there, and I was shocked.
At the garage?
At the garage.
Oh, wow.
I was going to the library and I couldn't find one in the garage. I found one I could walk away, but still, it's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, no, we've been trying to have that, but I'm just saying, really, and I hate to use it, but there is a city very close to us that has a 12-seater golf cart that runs people up and down. It's very, very close to us.
Yeah. Timing, man.
And maybe that is something to look at.
We would just let our volunteers keep the tips for sure.
Yeah, keep the tips. That's your pay.
We'll take them back.
Part-time.
Parking shuttle and run them up and down.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad. I think we need to talk about parking and look, and I think there's some cost-effective ways that don't involve $100 million parking garage. So
a golf cart's $5,000.
Yeah. So but I think we appreciate you bringing it up, and I think there's some real.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes. Meeting adjourned. Thanks.
Good night. I love it.